Before we dive into this cosmic soup of destiny and confusion, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button like you're trying to change your fate and drop a comment telling me what bizarre sign from the universe you've ignored this week. Was it a butterfly, a number sequence, or your Wi-Fi crashing right before a bad decision? Go on, confess. Destiny's watching, and honestly, it could use the laugh. There's a strange moment in every human life when control slips through our fingers like sand. You plan, you prepare, you pray, and yet the world does not bend to your will. Someone you love leaves without explanation. A job disappears overnight. A storm destroys what you built for years. It's in that collapse of certainty that something ancient awakens. The thought that maybe it wasn't random. Maybe there was a plan. Maybe what we call destiny is just the mind's last defense against madness. Because if it wasn't meant to happen, then it happened for nothing. And that idea, that unbearable thought of a meaningless pain, is what our species has always feared the most. When the first humans looked at the stars, they didn't see flaming gases or distant suns. They saw intentions, patterns, warnings, a cosmic choreography that turned chaos into something almost personal. The night sky became a story written for them. And honestly, who can blame them? Imagine living in a world where everything wants to kill you. Storms, snakes, hunger, and then being told it's all just coincidence. You'd lose your mind. So instead, we invented purpose. We turned fear into prophecy. We gave the universe a personality so we wouldn't feel so small inside it. It's funny, isn't it? Even now, with satellites orbiting Earth and algorithms predicting our behavior, we still whisper things like, everything happens for a reason. We've simply swapped Zeus for psychology and replaced the oracle with data analytics. But deep down, it's the same hunger, the craving to make chaos look organized. Because if there's a reason, then maybe the pain isn't pointless. Maybe your heartbreak, your failure, your silence, they all had to happen for you to become who you are. It's comforting, poetic even, but also a bit arrogant when you think about it. As if the entire universe needed to schedule a traffic jam just to teach you patience. Yet that's the secret. Destiny isn't just about believing the universe is kind, it's about surviving the unbearable. The ancient Greeks didn't write tragedies because they enjoyed suffering. They wrote them because suffering was the only proof that the gods were still paying attention. Oedipus didn't curse fate because it ruined him. He cursed it because it made sense of his ruin. It's easier to say, I was destined for this pain, than to face the raw absurdity that maybe, just maybe, no one was watching at all. You can almost see it happening through history. In every culture, people invented systems to decode the unknown. The stars, the palms, the bones thrown by shamans. Because unpredictability was worse than death. The hunter could handle losing his life. He couldn't handle losing his reason. And perhaps that's still true today. We'd rather believe that our heartbreak is a cosmic lesson than accept that it was just two flawed humans colliding at the wrong time. The first sounds sacred, the second sounds stupid. And the human ego doesn't like stupid. There's something tragic, but also hilariously human in that. We complain about fate tying our hands, but secretly we like it. Destiny gives failure an excuse and success a spotlight. It was meant to be. Sounds so much better than I got lucky. It makes us protagonists instead of passengers. And in the theater of life, everyone wants the leading role. The irony is that the more we try to control the story, the more we end up proving the opposite. That control is an illusion. You plan your week, and one phone call rewrites your script. You think you're steering the ship, but sometimes the storm was scheduled long before you set sail. Still, there's a strange beauty in surrendering. Maybe destiny isn't about control, but about choreography. The invisible rhythm connecting every accident, every encounter, every heartbreak. Like threads in a tapestry you can't see from up close. From where you stand, it looks like chaos. But from somewhere higher, maybe it's a pattern so intricate that even your pain has symmetry. That's why people started to believe, not out of ignorance, but out of exhaustion. The chaos was too heavy to carry alone, so they handed it to the heavens. And here's the twist. Sometimes, when you stop fighting the randomness, life starts to look suspiciously intentional. The stranger you met by chance becomes the friend who changes everything. The job you lost opens the door to the one that finally fits. It's almost as if life rewards the ones who stop demanding explanations. Maybe destiny is not something written. Maybe it's something that reveals itself when you stop trying to edit the script. But even knowing that, we still resist. We want answers carved in stone. We check horoscopes, ask for signs, and beg for coincidences to behave like clues. We turn every number on the clock into a message from the universe. Because uncertainty, for all its freedom, is unbearable to the human heart. It's like walking in the dark without knowing if the next step leads to solid ground or a cliff. And that's where destiny sneaks in. Not as a truth, but as a flashlight we invented to calm our shaking hands. The irony is that the moment we stop trying to predict everything, we start noticing the beauty in the unpredictability itself. Maybe the secret of the ancients wasn't that they believed in fate, but that they learned to find meaning even when life refused to give it. They didn't need certainty to feel alive, and they needed wonder. And perhaps that's what destiny really is. Not a plan written for you, but the ability to keep walking even when you don't know who's writing the story. It's strange how people talk about destiny as if it were a movie they've already seen. It was meant to happen, they say, nodding wisely, like they've just finished reading the script. But the truth is, no one's ever read the script. We're all improvising, pretending we know the plot while desperately hoping no one notices we're lost. Still, there's comfort in the illusion. If destiny exists, then maybe every wrong turn was just a scenic route, every heartbreak just a prelude to something poetic. The mind clings to that because randomness feels like betrayal, a cosmic shrug that says, you don't matter. And no one wants to believe the universe could be that indifferent. Maybe that's why ancient civilizations found meaning in everything. A crow flying left meant danger, a dream about teeth meant death, a spilled drink meant bad luck. It was a full-time job decoding existence. Yet, in a way, it gave them power. If life had patterns, then it could be read. If it could be read, it could be survived. That's how astrology, omens, and divine signs were born. Not out of superstition, but out of strategy. They weren't silly, they were trying to negotiate with chaos, and honestly, we're not much different. We might laugh at a Roman reading goat entrails, but then we refresh our horoscope to see if Mercury in retrograde explains why our Wi-Fi is acting up. Different century, same fear. What makes it even funnier is how selective our belief in destiny is. When something awful happens, it's bad luck. When something wonderful happens, it's meant to be. We never say, I guess the universe wanted me to fail that test, or fate decided I'd step in dog poop today. No, destiny only applies when it flatters us. We want to be chosen, not cursed. But maybe destiny doesn't care about our ego at all. Maybe it's more like weather. It doesn't mean to rain on your wedding day. It just does. We're the ones who decide whether to call it tragedy or poetry. It's fascinating how belief in fate transforms suffering. Pain alone is chaos, but pain with purpose is bearable. That's why people in crisis often say things like, this is teaching me something. It's not just comfort, it's survival instinct. The brain needs a story to stay sane. Without it, reality becomes noise. Think of every time something terrible happened, and years later, you found yourself saying, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. That's the destiny narrative retrofitted after the fact. We give meaning to pain once it's safe to look at it. In the moment, it's just agony. In hindsight, it's divine timing. But maybe that's the point. Destiny is born from hindsight. The human brain connects dots backwards. We can't predict the future, but we can rewrite the past into something we can live with. Every civilization has done this. The Greeks had Moirai spinning the threads of life. The Chinese had the Book of Changes. Christians spoke of God's plan. Scientists talk about deterministic laws. Different languages for the same yearning. To believe that existence isn't a cosmic accident. Because if it is, then all the love, loss, and longing might not mean anything. And that's the kind of thought that keeps people awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling and hoping for a sign. Even our relationships bend around this craving. We were destined to meet, we say about lovers who make our hearts race. It was fate. We sigh when a friendship ends but leaves a lesson. Yet destiny isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's cruelly pragmatic. Maybe you didn't meet that person because of cosmic alignment, but because you both had bad Wi-Fi and swiped right at the same time. Still, when they break your heart, you'll tell yourself it was destiny too. A beautiful tragedy, meant to shape your character. Humans can turn any disappointment into mythology if it hurts enough. And here's the strange paradox. We talk about destiny as if it robs us of freedom, but in truth, it might be the thing that keeps us from collapsing under it. The idea that everything has a reason lets us breathe after disaster. It's like emotional scaffolding. You don't build a house on it, but it stops the walls from falling. And maybe that's okay. Not every belief needs to be factually true to be psychologically useful. The placebo of meaning often heals more than the medicine of realism. We know destiny might be an illusion, but what a beautiful illusion it is, especially when life stops making sense. Sometimes destiny isn't cosmic at all. Sometimes it's just the name we give to our own stubbornness. You fail 10 times, but you call it fate guiding you instead of luck betraying you. And somehow that keeps you moving. Maybe that's what destiny really is, persistence dressed as poetry. The unseen hand isn't always divine. Sometimes it's just your own refusing to give up. And maybe that's where the magic hides. Not in some star chart or prophecy, but in the simple human act of getting back up after the universe has punched you in the ribs. Of course, the irony is that the more we chase meaning, the more elusive it becomes. We read signs, interpret dreams, calculate numerology, all in search of answers that might not exist. Yet there's something endearingly human about it. Like a child drawing constellations with a crayon, connecting random stars into lions and dragons, we too keep connecting the chaos into something recognizable. Because to live without a story feels like dying without a witness. And so we keep telling ourselves, this is not random, this is destiny. Maybe the truth doesn't matter as much as the comfort it brings. And perhaps that's the quiet brilliance of it all. Not that destiny is real, but that it works. It helps us survive heartbreak, loss, failure, and fear. It gives us a way to stand inside the storm and still believe the wind knows where it's going. Maybe destiny isn't written in the stars at all. Maybe it's written in how we choose to keep believing, again and again, that our pain has a point, that our story has a shape, that we, somehow, are meant to be exactly where we are. Some people say they don't believe in destiny, but wait until life hits them with something completely absurd. A missed flight that leads to meeting their spouse, a random detour that saves them from an accident, a phone call answered a second too late that changes everything. Suddenly, disbelief turns into negotiation. I'm not saying I believe in fate, they start, and that but is the sound of the human mind folding under the weight of coincidence. We can't stand the thought that life might be a series of dice rolls, so we build a mythology to soften the blow. Because chaos without meaning feels like mockery. Our ancestors understood this long before science entered the conversation. In ancient Rome, if lightning struck twice, they didn't call an electrician, they called a priest. The idea that events might be purely accidental was unthinkable. Every rustle in the forest carried intention, every illness a hidden message from the gods. And oddly enough, that belief system worked. It gave people a sense of participation in their own misfortune. If bad luck had a reason, then it could be bargained with, prayed over, or redeemed. Random suffering, on the other hand, left you powerless, and humans would rather face an angry god than a meaningless universe. That hasn't really changed. We just swapped the temples for therapists and the gods for algorithms. When something goes wrong, we still search for the hidden code behind it. Why did this happen to me? Has become the most human question ever asked. And the most profitable one, too. Entire industries are built around decoding the invisible. Astrology apps, tarot readers, self-help gurus, even life coaches who promise to align you with your purpose. We've professionalized destiny. You can subscribe to your fate now, monthly payment included. But deep down, destiny isn't about predicting the future. It's about protecting the ego. If you believe everything happens for a reason, then you're never just a victim of chance. You're part of a divine screenplay. The heartbreak wasn't just a breakup. It was character development. The failure wasn't incompetence, it was foreshadowing. You're not lost. You're in the middle of an arc. And who doesn't want to believe that? The mind will twist itself into knots to avoid admitting that maybe no one is writing this script. And yet, sometimes destiny shows up wearing a sense of humor. You spend years chasing a dream only to realize it was chasing you. You run from someone and bump right into them at the worst possible time. The universe has impeccable comedic timing. Cruel, but cinematic. It's as if fate enjoys setting up punchlines just to remind us that control is overrated. And there's something liberating about that realization. Maybe the goal was never to predict the story, but to laugh at how unpredictable it is. After all, if you can find humor in the chaos, you've already outsmarted it. Still, people crave signs. We look for them in the most ridiculous places. A repeating number on a clock, a song that plays right when you're thinking of someone, a bird landing on your windowsill and staring at you like it knows something. We call them messages, but maybe they're mirrors, reflections of whatever we need to believe in that moment. The bird isn't a prophet. It's just a bird. But if believing it's a messenger helps you survive another day, maybe that's sacred enough. Belief doesn't have to be logical to be useful. And then there's the question of control, or rather the illusion of it. We love the idea of shaping our fate, but we also love pretending that fate is shaping us. It's a convenient dance. When life goes well, we take credit. When it goes terribly, we blame destiny. It just wasn't meant to be, is the emotional equivalent of a refund policy. It keeps our pride intact. Maybe that's why the concept of destiny survived every revolution, every scientific discovery, every atheist manifesto, because it protects our dignity from randomness. Without it, we'd have to face the terrifying truth that life doesn't owe us an explanation. But destiny's not always kind. It can be the cruelest of comforts. Think about people who believe they're cursed or destined to fail. It gives shape to their pain, but it also traps them in it. Once you believe you're written into tragedy, you stop trying to edit the script. That's the dark side of destiny. It can become a prison disguised as poetry. Sometimes the most rebellious act of faith is not believing in fate at all. It's saying, no, I'll write this part myself. Yet even the rebels end up circling back. Because when life breaks them again, and it always does, they start whispering those forbidden words. Maybe it was meant to happen this way. Maybe it's not a weakness to believe. Maybe it's just part of being human, needing to stitch a story where the fabric keeps tearing. Belief in destiny might not be a sign of ignorance, but of tenderness, an act of emotional survival. And perhaps that's the quiet secret no one wants to admit. We don't need destiny to be real for it to matter. It matters because it gives us language for the unbearable. It lets us grieve with purpose, love with courage, and fail with grace. Maybe fate isn't about divine plans at all. Maybe it's the art of turning randomness into meaning. And in that sense, we're all creators, not followers of destiny. We're the ones who take the chaos, laugh at it, cry over it, and somehow make it beautiful enough to believe in again. There's a quiet moment in everyone's life when they stop and ask, was all of this really my choice? Maybe it's after a heartbreak or a failure or one of those mornings where you wake up feeling like you accidentally ended up in someone else's story. The human mind doesn't like uncertainty. It prefers a villain, a hero, and a plot. So when things fall apart, we look for meaning like it's oxygen. Destiny becomes that invisible author we can blame when the pen runs out of ink. Because if it was written, then maybe it wasn't our fault. And if it wasn't our fault, then we can keep living without collapsing under the weight of regret. The strange thing about destiny is that it feels personal, yet it doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't knock before it enters. It just barges in, rearranging everything like a drunk interior designer. You think you're building a career? Then one random conversation reroutes your entire life. You think you found the one, and suddenly they're just one of the lessons. There's a dark humor in that. How destiny always arrives late, uninvited, but somehow on time for the plot twist. Maybe that's why people love stories where fate intervenes. Deep down, we're hoping that when life blindsides us, it's at least for dramatic effect. Sometimes, destiny doesn't even need to be mystical, just inconvenient. You plan a vacation and end up trapped in an airport next to a stranger who changes everything. You move to a city for work and accidentally meet someone who teaches you something you didn't even know you were searching for. We call it coincidence, but the timing feels suspiciously poetic. The universe has a way of choreographing accidents that feel too precise to be random. Maybe it's not that destiny writes our story. Maybe it just edits it with incredible comedic timing. There's a certain irony in how people talk about control. We obsess over choices, as if the universe is a vending machine and we just need to press the right button to get the life we ordered. But sometimes, no matter how many plans you make, the machine eats your coin and gives you something you never asked for, a lesson disguised as disappointment. And in those moments, when logic collapses, destiny steps in like a comforting stranger saying, "Shh, this had to happen." Aye, we want to believe that even if it's not true. Because the alternative, that life is just chaos dressed in coincidence, feels unbearable. What's fascinating is how destiny often wears the mask of pain. The biggest transformations rarely come from triumph. They come from collapse. You lose someone and suddenly you start living differently. You fail at something and only then discover who you were without success. Maybe destiny doesn't deliver rewards. It delivers wake-up calls. Pain, in that sense, becomes sacred. It shakes us awake from the illusion of control, and while it's happening, it feels like punishment, but later it starts to look suspiciously like guidance. Perhaps that's why every culture on Earth turns suffering into ritual. If pain has meaning, it's survivable. There's a strange comfort in believing you were meant to go through something unbearable. It transforms the narrative. Instead of, "I was broken," it becomes, "I was being reshaped." Instead of, "I lost everything," it turns into, "I was being redirected." The words change nothing about the facts, but they change everything about how the heart endures them. And maybe that's where destiny truly lives. Not in the stars, but in the language we use to survive our own chaos. You can see it in everyday life. People who once swore they didn't believe in fate suddenly find signs in everything. They see 11:11 on the clock and smile like the universe just texted them. They miss a bus and decide it was destiny protecting them from an accident that never happened. Skeptics might call it delusion, but maybe it's just emotional intelligence disguised as spirituality. If believing in destiny keeps someone hopeful instead of hopeless, maybe the belief is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Of course, destiny also has a mischievous side. It tends to show up the moment you think you've figured everything out. You finally make peace with the past, and then it drops an unexpected chapter in your lap. An old friend reappears, a long-lost dream resurfaces, or life forces you to confront something you thought was buried. It's almost as if destiny can't stand the idea of a neatly tied ending. And maybe that's because it knows something we don't. That certainty is the death of curiosity, and curiosity is the pulse of being alive. Still, even as we joke about fate's bad timing, there's something profoundly humbling about it. The realization that life doesn't bend to our will, that there's something bigger, stranger, and wiser orchestrating the chaos, can be terrifying or transcendent depending on the day. Some people call it God, others call it probability, but the name doesn't matter. What matters is that we feel part of a pattern too vast to comprehend. It's what keeps us from drowning in randomness. Because when you stop looking for control and start looking for connection, even the worst moments start to shimmer with strange purpose. Maybe that's the final trick of destiny. It teaches surrender, not the kind that means giving up, but the kind that means letting go. Letting go of the illusion that you could have done it differently. Letting go of the idea that every heartbreak was a mistake. Letting go of the version of yourself who thought they knew how it would all turn out. Maybe the secret isn't to predict the path, but to walk it with grace, knowing that even detours lead somewhere worth reaching. And perhaps the real comedy of life is that we spend decades trying to escape destiny, only to realize it wasn't chasing us. It was waiting patiently at every intersection, wearing a familiar smile, whispering, "You were always meant to find your way back here." There's something oddly poetic about realizing that life never needed your permission to unfold. You can plan every detail, rehearse every answer, chart every goal, and yet the script still rewrites itself in the middle of the performance. One moment you're convinced you're in control, the next you're staring at a version of your life you didn't order. Like the universe mixed up your delivery but still expects you to tip. It's almost comical how quickly certainty can evaporate. And yet, maybe that's where the beauty hides, in the parts we never saw coming, the chapters we would have deleted if destiny hadn't insisted on keeping them. Most people don't realize it, but believing in destiny isn't really about the future. It's about making peace with the past. It's how we forgive life for not following our plans. When someone says everything happens for a reason, they're not predicting the next scene. They're trying to rewrite the last one. It's a quiet form of therapy, a way of telling the heart that chaos was never just chaos, that even the heartbreak had choreography. Maybe it's delusion, or maybe it's emotional survival disguised as philosophy. Because without that kind of meaning, pain would be unbearable. Destiny becomes the narrator that turns suffering into story. It's funny how destiny always feels wiser in hindsight. In the middle of pain, you curse it. Years later, you call it divine timing. It's the same event, only the distance changed. We all do it. Think about the job you didn't get, the person who left, the opportunity that vanished. At the time, it felt cruel. Then, somewhere down the line, you look back and think, that's why. It's like destiny waits until the credits roll to explain the plot twist. Maybe that's its sense of humor, leaving you confused for half the movie, only to reveal that the chaos actually made sense all along. But destiny isn't always gentle. Sometimes it drags you kicking and screaming into the very places you need to be. You resist, you fight, you swear it's unfair, and only when you're too tired to struggle do you see that the path was never the enemy. It was your own insistence on control that made it hurt. We call it surrender when it finally breaks us, but maybe it's really alignment, the moment we stop demanding explanations and start listening to what life is trying to say. Because whether we admit it or not, every detour has a strange precision. The timing of loss, the coincidence of encounters, the way certain people appear right when everything else collapses. It's too consistent to dismiss and too unpredictable to explain. Maybe that's why humans have always personified fate. The Greeks imagined 3 women spinning the thread of every life. The Norse spoke of weavers who determined the end of heroes before they were even born. Even in modern times, we can't resist the imagery. We still talk about red strings, paths crossing, timelines aligning. It's our way of taming the unknown. We turn randomness into ritual, accident into architecture. It's not that we're naive, it's that we're poetic. The brain needs a metaphor to make peace with what it can't control. There's a quiet brilliance in that. Destiny doesn't have to be real to work. It only has to be believable enough to give meaning. It's like emotional placebo, but one that actually helps us heal. When you tell yourself it wasn't supposed to happen any other way, something inside you exhales. The story settles. You stop replaying the scene where it all went wrong and start focusing on what it might be teaching you. And isn't that what wisdom really is? Turning regret into instruction? Maybe destiny is just the word we use when we finally understand what the pain was trying to say. And yet, for all our talk about fate, we keep testing it. We check horoscopes just for fun. We wish on falling stars, even when we know it's debris burning in the atmosphere. We read fortunes in cookies written by minimum wage philosophers. It's almost charming, this eternal human need to negotiate with the universe. Even the most rational people, when cornered by life, start asking for signs. Maybe it's not weakness, but recognition. The silent admission that logic can't hold your hand at 3 a.m. when you're lost in your own timeline. Destiny, whether real or imagined, feels like a friend who whispers, "Keep going. This part will make sense later." Sometimes I wonder if destiny isn't an external force at all, but the reflection of our own persistence. The way we refuse to give up after everything goes wrong. The way we keep trying to make sense of the senseless. That might be what destiny actually is. Maybe it's not written in the stars, but etched in the stubbornness of the human spirit. Because no matter how many times life knocks us down, we find a reason, any reason, to stand back up. Call it fate, call it faith, call it foolish optimism. But it's the same power that's been moving humanity forward since we first looked at the sky and thought someone was looking back. What's beautiful and terrifying is that destiny works best when we stop trying to catch it. The more we chase meaning, the more it hides. But when we stop running, when we finally sit still long enough to let life unfold, we start noticing the subtle alignments. The coincidences that feel too gentle to be random. The lessons that arrive just when we're ready to hear them. Maybe destiny was never about control or prediction. Maybe it's about rhythm. Learning to dance with what you don't understand. And in that dance, there's laughter too. Because the moment you realize how absurdly unpredictable everything is, You either cry or laugh, and laughing feels better. You laugh at your past self for thinking you had it all figured out. You laugh at the twists that once broke you but now make a great story. You laugh because, in some strange way, it all fits. Not perfectly, but truthfully. That's destiny's final trick, turning chaos into a punchline, tragedy into timing, and confusion into art. Maybe that's all we were ever meant to do. To live the story, survive the randomness, and in the end, smile at how strangely perfect it all turned out. Maybe destiny was never about knowing the path, but learning to walk blindfolded and still trust the floor won't disappear. Life has a way of teaching you that certainty is a luxury, a beautiful illusion you can't afford to keep forever. You start young believing you'll have it all figured out by a certain age, and then one morning you realize the only thing you figured out is that no one ever does. We're all improvising, pretending to understand, making meaning out of moments that rarely make sense. And that's when you start seeing destiny not as a plan, but as a pulse. Something alive, unpredictable, constantly rewriting itself while pretending to follow your lead. The illusion of control is seductive, though. We plan our careers, schedule our happiness, even pencil in spontaneity like it's another task on the calendar. But destiny laughs at calendars. It shows up uninvited, usually wearing chaos as perfume. One moment you're late for a train, furious that your day is ruined, and the next, you're sitting beside someone who changes your entire perspective. It's poetic in the most irritating way. The universe doesn't ask if you're ready. It just nudges you toward the version of yourself you've been avoiding becoming. Maybe that's the hidden cruelty of destiny. It doesn't always give you what you want. It gives you what will wake you up. We like to imagine that we'd embrace that with grace, but let's be honest, most of us fight it tooth and nail. We cling to the predictable like a toddler clutching a toy, terrified of the unknown. But every time life pulls that toy away, something strange happens. We grow. Growth never arrives in peace. It crashes into your comfort zone and redecorates everything without permission. You don't get to negotiate with transformation. You can either resist it and suffer, or surrender and call it destiny. Both routes take you to the same destination. One just has less kicking and screaming. Sometimes I think destiny hides in the small, overlooked details. The extra 5 minutes you stayed somewhere for no reason. The strange urge to call someone you hadn't spoken to in years. The instinct to take a different road home. We dismiss these things as coincidence, but later, they reveal themselves as turning points. It's almost funny how the universe loves to work undercover, disguising major shifts as trivial decisions. Maybe fate isn't loud because it doesn't need to be. It just waits for you to notice. There's a quiet mercy in that. We tend to imagine destiny as a grand force, a booming voice, a thunderbolt from the sky, a prophecy whispered in candlelight. But most of the time, it's softer than that. It speaks through timing, through intuition, through that unexplainable feeling that something matters more than logic can justify. You can't prove it, but you know it in your bones. And when you start listening to that voice, you realize destiny isn't somewhere ahead. It's happening right now, shaping every breath, every choice, every accident that turns out not to be one. Of course, we still like to joke about it. We say things like, it's fate, when something weirdly perfect happens, or it wasn't meant to be, when we're trying to save face. But beneath the humor, there's truth. Humor, after all, is how humans digest what's too vast to understand. We laugh about destiny the way sailors joke about the sea, to keep from losing their minds, because deep down we know how little control we have. And maybe laughter is our most honest prayer, our way of saying, I know I can't control this, but at least let me find it funny. Some of the most profound stories come from moments that felt like mistakes. Think of how many inventions, friendships, or love stories began by accident. Penicillin was discovered because of mold on a forgotten dish. Microwave ovens were invented after a scientist noticed a candy bar melting in his pocket. Even the stars in the sky are the result of cosmic collisions, chaos producing beauty. Maybe destiny isn't order after all. Maybe it's chaos with impeccable taste. The universe makes a mess, then signs it like art. And still, we crave signs. We want certainty dressed as mystery. We ask the universe for clues, and then ignore them because they don't fit our expectations. It's like ordering destiny on Amazon and being mad when it doesn't look like the picture. But maybe that's the trick. The universe doesn't send what you asked for. It sends what you need to outgrow the person who asked. The packaging might look like loss, rejection, or failure, but inside, there's always some quiet gift. Patience, humility, awareness, or the courage to start again. The catch is, you only recognize it when it's over, when the pain has already done its job. Sometimes, destiny feels cruel because it doesn't care about timing. It doesn't wait for you to heal before testing you again. But maybe that's because destiny isn't concerned with your comfort. It's concerned with your evolution. Comfort rarely builds character. Conflict does. And yes, that's a horrible design flaw. Whoever programmed this version of existence clearly had a dark sense of humor. But maybe the joke is that even suffering, when seen from afar, looks suspiciously like choreography. The moments that broke you are often the same ones that taught you how to live with your eyes open. And maybe, in the end, that's what destiny really is. Not a cosmic puppet master pulling strings, but the invisible rhythm that teaches you how to move through the uncertainty without losing your balance. You stop trying to predict the melody and start dancing anyway. Because even if it's all random, even if the universe isn't paying attention, you still get to turn the noise into music. Maybe that's what destiny's been trying to say all along. It doesn't matter who's writing the story. What matters is how bravely you live it. Sometimes it feels like the universe is a bad comedian with impeccable timing. You're sitting there, minding your own business, and suddenly it throws a punchline disguised as disaster. You lose a job, a friend disappears, or a dream collapses overnight. And it hurts. It really does. But later, much later, when the dust has settled and your pride has stopped limping, you realize that what felt like punishment was actually direction. The universe might not be kind, but it has an odd sense of efficiency. It wastes nothing, not even your heartbreaks. They all become ingredients in something you'll only recognize when you're ready. It's strange how we keep trying to make sense of it all while pretending we're not. We tell ourselves we're rational, scientific, objective beings, yet we still knock on wood, make wishes on eyelashes, and wait for the clock to hit 11:11. Part of us knows it's silly. Another part whispers, but what if it's not? That's the paradox of being human, a creature made of reason but addicted to meaning. We crave order, but we're also secretly thrilled by the thought that there might be something beyond logic guiding our chaos. Maybe that's why people love destiny. It lets us feel both safe and enchanted at the same time. Every culture has had its own way of dressing up this longing. The Greeks imagined three sisters weaving the threads of human life, their scissors always ready. The Egyptians spoke of divine balance. The Chinese saw harmony in yin and yang, and medieval Europeans built cathedrals trying to align heaven and earth. Everyone, everywhere, in every era, wanted to believe the same thing, that life wasn't random, that their suffering was somehow necessary, and that someone or something was keeping score. Even now, with quantum physics and therapy apps, that belief still lingers. We say it was meant to be, the same way our ancestors said, the gods willed it. We've just updated the vocabulary. The truth, though, is that destiny often feels like a trickster. It doesn't give straight answers. It speaks in riddles and timing. You don't realize what it was doing until the scene is over. You think you're choosing freely, but sometimes it feels like the choices were waiting for you all along. It's like walking through a maze blindfolded, bumping into walls, cursing, and then looking back to see the pattern. Every wrong turn was shaping you, every delay teaching you to move slower, every heartbreak making room for something you wouldn't have accepted otherwise. Destiny doesn't rush. It waits until irony ripens. And maybe that's why it's hard to recognize while you're inside it. People often ask, how do I know if something is meant for me? But maybe that's not how it works. Maybe you can't know until hindsight transforms confusion into coherence. It's like reading a novel one sentence at a time. It makes no sense until the final chapter. Life is the same. You can't skip ahead. You have to live each paragraph, even the ones that feel meaningless, because one day they'll be the part that ties everything together. That's the maddening part. Destiny gives answers, but only to the patient. Still, it's funny how often destiny uses other people as messengers. Sometimes a stranger says a sentence that rearranges your entire perspective. Sometimes a friend's mistake saves you from one of your own. Sometimes the person who broke you becomes the reason you start building differently. It's as if life recycles characters, placing them in your story not for love or hate, but for movement. And that's the twist. Destiny doesn't care whether an experience feels good. It cares whether it wakes you up. Humans, of course, don't like this kind of education. We prefer comfort over awareness. We'd rather learn through applause than through heartbreak. But the universe, in its questionable wisdom, doesn't operate on Yelp reviews. It doesn't care how much you like the lesson, only that you learn it. Maybe that's why destiny feels so infuriatingly unfair, because it's not personal. It's not punishing you or rewarding you. It's sculpting you, one uncomfortable experience at a time, into someone who can see beyond what they thought they wanted. There's a story about a farmer whose horse ran away. The neighbors came to console him, saying how unlucky he was. The next day the horse returned, bringing with it 3 wild ones. How fortunate, they said. Then his son broke his leg trying to tame one of them, and the villagers pitied him again. Days later, soldiers arrived, conscripting every able-bodied man for war, except his injured son. Was it good? Was it bad? The farmer just shrugged. Who knows? Maybe that's the wisest way to live, not labeling each event as blessing or curse, but recognizing that destiny takes its time revealing which is which. And yet, even with all this mystery, destiny somehow manages to be funny. Think of how often life foreshadows without telling you. The song that becomes the soundtrack to your most painful goodbye. The random comment that becomes a prophecy. The small inconvenience that ends up saving you from disaster. It's like the universe sneaks Easter eggs into your life just to keep things interesting. You start noticing them more when you stop demanding explanations and start paying attention. Destiny doesn't hide, it winks. There's a quiet liberation in realizing that. When you stop trying to control everything, you start seeing everything differently. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start wondering, well, what is this trying to show me? That shift, from resistance to curiosity, changes everything. Suddenly, even the hard moments have texture. You stop fearing detours because you understand that sometimes the scenic route is the only route. Life doesn't owe you straight lines, it gives you spirals. And somewhere inside those loops, destiny waits. Patient, smirking, knowing you'll laugh when you finally get the joke. And maybe that's the final secret. Destiny doesn't demand belief to work. It keeps spinning its web, whether you acknowledge it or not. You can mock it, ignore it, or curse it, and still, it moves quietly beneath the surface, stitching chaos into meaning. It doesn't need you to understand. It only needs you to live. And perhaps that's the greatest punchline of all, Spirits, that in trying to find destiny, you are already walking it all along. Maybe destiny isn't something waiting at the end of the road, but something that keeps nudging you while you walk. You think it's just coincidence that you keep hearing the same advice from different people, or that the same problem keeps showing up in new disguises. But maybe it's repetition with a purpose. Life doesn't whisper once. It keeps shouting until you finally listen. It's like the universe is that persistent friend who won't stop calling until you pick up, except instead of gossip, it's offering lessons disguised as disasters. And when you finally answer, it doesn't say, I told you so. It just sighs, finally. We like to believe we're the authors of our lives, but sometimes it feels like we're just proofreading someone else's rough draft. Things happen too perfectly, too absurdly aligned to be random. You meet a stranger who says the exact words you needed to hear. You get delayed by a minute and avoid an accident. You miss out on something you begged for, only to realize later that it would have destroyed you. We call it coincidence because the alternative, that something unseen is orchestrating it all, is too big for the mind to swallow. But maybe it's both. Maybe fate and free will are just two hands writing the same sentence from different ends of the page. Destiny also has a sense of humor about timing. It's always late when you're impatient and early when you're not ready. You spend years searching for purpose, then stumble upon it when you're just trying to buy milk. You chase the wrong things until exhaustion forces you to sit still, and that's when the right things find you. It's like life is playing a prank, watching you run in circles before quietly placing what you wanted right where you started. Maybe destiny doesn't hide. Maybe it just waits for you to stop being dramatic. And while we're being honest, destiny doesn't always look divine when it's happening. Sometimes it looks like failure. Sometimes it smells like heartbreak and sounds like a door slamming shut. It rarely arrives with a halo. More often it shows up wearing chaos. But that's the trick. You can't recognize destiny while you're still grieving what it replaced. The new chapter only makes sense when you stop clinging to the last one. You can't read the next page if your tears are still smudging the ink. People often ask, what if I miss my destiny? As if it's a bus that only stops once. But maybe you can't miss what's written into the fabric of your being. Maybe it's not about catching it, but about learning to see it in whatever direction life throws you. Destiny doesn't vanish because you took a wrong turn. It just changes routes. You can delay it, resist it, even curse it, but it has a strange patience. It circles back through different people, different choices, different lifetimes of the same lesson until you finally learn to say, oh, it was you all along. It's also worth noting that destiny doesn't always reward good behavior. Some of the kindest people get hit with the hardest storms. Meanwhile, the worst people seem to win lotteries, promotions, and peace of mind. It's enough to make you question if destiny ever checks its moral compass. But maybe it's not about justice. Maybe it's about evolution. Life isn't trying to make things fair. It's trying to make things meaningful. And sometimes meaning demands imbalance. It needs contrast, tension, friction. Otherwise, nothing changes. Even nature works that way. Diamonds are made from pressure. Stars are born from collapse. Maybe souls are too. We can laugh about it because the alternative is screaming. Destiny forces humility in the most ridiculous ways. You plan a speech and the microphone dies. You spend hours crafting the perfect day and it rains. You swear you'll never fall in love again. And there they are, ordering the same coffee as you, smiling like they've known you for lifetimes. Life doesn't care about your script. It cares about your response. Maybe that's the real test. Not whether you get what you want, but how gracefully you adjust when you don't. There's something almost mischievous in how destiny teaches empathy. It sends you through experiences you once judged others for. The same heartbreaks you once mocked become your own teachers. The people you thought were weak suddenly look wise in hindsight. Destiny has a way of softening arrogance until all that's left is understanding. You start realizing everyone's just trying to survive their own plot twist. And in that realization, you stop comparing your journey to theirs, because you finally see that every story has its own choreography of chaos. Even the ancient philosophers knew this paradox. The Stoics believed that destiny was like a dog tied to a moving cart. If it resisted, it was dragged. If it walked with the cart, it moved freely. It's a grim but funny image, a reminder that the only real choice is how willingly we dance with what's already unfolding. You can either spend your life being pulled by circumstances or learn to move in rhythm with them. Either way, the cart's going. The freedom is in how you follow. And maybe that's where destiny hides its tenderness, in the quiet moments when everything feels too heavy and yet somehow you keep walking. You think you're broken, but something deep within you refuses to quit. That invisible push, that flicker of hope after the storm. Maybe that's destiny too. Not a force controlling you from above, but something ancient inside you whispering, keep going, this is part of it. Because maybe destiny isn't a map drawn for you, but a compass planted in you, guiding you not toward perfection, but toward truth. And the funny part? Once you stop trying to decode it, destiny starts speaking clearly. The signs become obvious, the patterns make sense, and life stops feeling like a puzzle and starts feeling like poetry. Maybe that's what destiny wanted all along, for you to stop chasing answers and start living the question, to laugh in the middle of uncertainty, to find peace not because everything is clear, but because you finally realize that even in the chaos, you were never walking alone. There comes a moment when you realize that destiny doesn't always arrive with thunder or revelation. Sometimes it shows up quietly, disguised as boredom, as an ordinary Tuesday. You expect fireworks, but it hands you a choice so small you almost miss it. And yet, that's how most lives change, not through explosions, but through subtle shifts. The friend you almost didn't meet, the job you almost didn't take, the moment you almost said no. Life loves to hide turning points inside the mundane, as if to see who's really paying attention. It's both cruel and hilarious when you think about it. You're waiting for fate to announce itself with a parade, and instead it slips a note under your door that says, you up? The irony is that we often meet destiny when we're too tired to chase it. It sneaks in during surrender. When the plans fail, the map burns, and you've officially given up trying to control everything. That's when it whispers, finally, I've been trying to reach you for years. Maybe that's why so many people find clarity at rock bottom. The noise of ambition quiets, and for the first time, they can actually hear what life's been saying all along. There's something comedic about it, like realizing the keys were in your pocket after tearing the house apart searching for them. Destiny's not hiding, we're just loud. Sometimes the greatest trick of destiny is making you believe you're lost, when you're actually being redirected. The detours that feel like punishment often turn out to be precision. You lose one thing and gain something invisible. A deeper sense of self, a sharper instinct, a lighter heart. Of course, no one wants to hear that in the middle of chaos. When life falls apart, you don't want philosophy. You want a refund. But time has a way of turning refunds into revelations. You look back and realize the pieces didn't break, they rearranged. Maybe the universe isn't cruel after all. Maybe it just has terrible communication skills. It's easy to laugh at that idea until you remember how stubborn we can be. We cling to what we think we want, even when it's slowly destroying us. We beg for closed doors to reopen, for people to stay who were clearly on their way out. Destiny tries to move us forward, and we dig in our heels, crying about the view we're losing instead of the horizon waiting ahead. It's human, really. We treat endings like failures instead of transitions. But maybe that's where destiny hides its kindness. In the endings that hurt enough to push us toward beginnings we'd never choose on our own. There's a strange peace in realizing that the worst days often prepare you for the best one. It's like the universe is setting up a joke that takes years to land, and you're both the punchline and the audience. You survive something you thought would break you, and suddenly, small inconveniences don't matter anymore. You start laughing at things that once terrified you. Maybe that's the truest sign of wisdom, not having fewer problems, but reacting to them with better humor. Destiny doesn't reward the serious. It favors those who can laugh in the storm. Because laughter, in a way, is defiance. A reminder that the chaos didn't win. It's also fascinating how destiny weaves itself through other people. The person who betrays you might be the reason you find your independence. The stranger who helps you might carry a lesson they'll never realize they taught. Even the ones who vanish without explanation leave fingerprints on your evolution. Every soul you meet rewires you a little. Maybe destiny isn't an external force, but a network of connections constantly pulling you toward understanding. Every conversation, every heartbreak, every coincidence, they're all threads in a web you can't see until you step back. From up close, it looks messy. From afar, it's a masterpiece. And yet, we keep trying to predict it, as if destiny were a math problem we could solve with enough variables. We read birth charts, pull tarot cards, and stalk psychics on social media, not because we need certainty, but because we want reassurance that we're not wasting our pain. We don't actually need to know the future. We just want to believe it's worth reaching. Maybe that's why fortune-telling has survived every civilization. It's not about magic, it's about hope. It's the art of saying, hang in there, something's coming, even when no one knows what that something is. Destiny also loves irony. You spend years chasing freedom only to realize it was never outside of you. You swear off love and then meet someone who feels like déjà vu. You give up on a dream and a different version of it lands in your lap. It's It's like the universe waits for you to stop demanding and start deserving. The moment you loosen your grip, things start flowing again. Maybe that's not mystical. Maybe it's just physics. You can't receive with clenched fists. The tighter you hold, the more life slips through your fingers. Destiny rewards openness, not desperation. There's an old saying that what's meant for you will never miss you, and what misses you was never meant for you. It sounds comforting, but it's also terrifying, because it means you can't control what stays or leaves. You can only learn to trust the current. That trust doesn't come naturally. It's built through every disappointment that didn't destroy you. You start to see a pattern. Every time something left, it made space for something better, suited to your truth. Every time you thought it was the end, it was just the comma before the next sentence. Destiny doesn't write tragedies, it writes transformations disguised as them. Maybe that's why the most peaceful people aren't the ones who have everything figured out, but the ones who've made peace with not knowing. They move like water, adaptable, patient, quietly certain that the flow will take them where they're meant to be. They stop fighting the current and start listening to its rhythm. You can feel it when you meet them, the calm, grounded energy that says, "I've stopped arguing with life." Maybe that's what destiny was waiting for all along. Not our perfection, but our surrender. Because once you stop demanding answers, life finally starts to show you them. Not through words, but through timing, through laughter, through the strange, gentle alignment of things that were never supposed to make sense, but somehow do. And in that realization, maybe we stop chasing destiny and start living it. One breath, one accident, one divine joke at a time. Maybe destiny isn't about finding meaning, but creating it as you go. Like painting in the dark and only realizing what you were making once the lights come on. You stumble, spill colors, ruin what looked perfect yesterday, and still somehow the whole thing ends up beautiful. Life has this strange talent for turning your mess into art when you stop trying to fix it and start learning from it. We spend so much time begging for clarity when maybe confusion was part of the curriculum all along. After all, what's a good story without a few chapters that make no sense until the end? It's strange how often destiny hides inside delay. You think your life is on pause, but something is quietly rearranging behind the curtain. The opportunity you lost, the plan that fell through, the door that never opened, they were all part of a slow choreography designed to get you to the next scene on time. Not your time, though. The universe has the punctuality of a cat. It shows up exactly when it feels like it, completely unconcerned about your schedule, and yet, somehow, when it arrives, it's always perfect. Maybe we should stop asking why now and start whispering, of course now. We underestimate how much humor is hidden inside fate. You tell the universe you want patience, and it gives you a situation that tests every nerve in your body. You ask for strength, and suddenly you're carrying everything you swore you couldn't handle. It's almost as if destiny hears your prayers, but decides to grant them in sarcastic riddles. You wanted growth? Great. Here's chaos. You wanted love? Here's someone who will teach you what love isn't first. The cosmic sense of humor is brutal but effective. Maybe enlightenment is just realizing the joke was never on you. You were part of the punchline. There's a beauty in how destiny uses contrast. Without darkness, light would be boring. Without loss, gratitude would be a theory instead of a feeling. We don't appreciate mornings until we've survived a few long nights. That's the paradox. Destiny teaches through opposites. You learn peace from conflict, faith from doubt, and courage from fear. The cruel part is that it doesn't tell you what the lesson is until you've already paid tuition. But when you look back, everything starts to connect. The heartbreak that humbled you, the failure that redirected you, the waiting that stretched you into someone capable of receiving what you once couldn't hold. Sometimes, destiny feels like a long inside joke between you and time. You think you're stuck in a loop, repeating the same mistakes, meeting the same kind of people, feeling the same pain. And then one day you notice something's changed. Not the circumstances, but you. The loop didn't trap you, it trained you. Life kept handing you the same test until you finally stopped answering it the same way. That's when you realize destiny isn't circular after all. It's spiral. You're not stuck. You're ascending, revisiting old lessons from higher ground. Even the smallest decisions ripple through this web of destiny. The coffee you chose instead of tea. The text you sent or didn't. The random book you picked up at an airport that said exactly what you needed to read that day. It's unsettling how much can hinge on moments that feel meaningless, but maybe that's what makes life so magnetic. Every second has potential. We live in a world where the extraordinary is constantly disguised as ordinary, waiting for us to pay attention. Maybe destiny isn't something we find, but something we notice when we finally slow down. It's interesting how we mistake comfort for alignment. We assume that when something feels easy, it's meant to be, but growth rarely feels that way. Sometimes destiny drags you through discomfort not to punish you, but to prepare you. You can't climb a mountain without friction. You can't expand without being stretched. We pray for peace, but forget that peace often grows in the ruins of our expectations. The universe is a terrible multitasker, but an excellent sculptor. It shapes us through pressure, through the kind of moments we swear we'll never survive. Until we do, and suddenly we're new. People say destiny loves the brave, but maybe it just loves the curious, the ones who keep walking even when they don't know where the path leads. Certainty is overrated anyway. Imagine knowing everything that's going to happen. The excitement would evaporate. The suspense is what makes it worth living. Destiny's not a script, it's improv. You show up, do your best, and trust that somehow the scene will make sense later. And maybe that's what faith really is. Not blind belief, but quiet collaboration with mystery. What's funny is that when you finally stop chasing destiny, it starts showing up everywhere. In laughter, in loss, in the way someone says your name, in the silence after something ends. You start realizing that destiny was never hiding behind grand events. It was always present in the smallest gestures. The hand that reached for yours at the right time. The moment you forgave yourself without ceremony. The sigh that said, "I'm tired." And the voice inside that answered, "Keep going." Maybe destiny isn't about the stars aligning. Maybe it's about you aligning with yourself. And when you reach that place, that quiet, unexplainable peace, you stop asking for signs. You stop needing guarantees. You start trusting the rhythm, even when it feels offbeat. Because somewhere deep down, you finally understand. Every twist, every heartbreak, every delay, even every ridiculous misunderstanding was part of something far too intricate to be random. The comedy, the chaos, the cruelty, all of it stitched together to bring you here, to this exact breath, to this exact awareness. And maybe that's destiny's final secret, that it never wanted your certainty, only your participation. To live fully, laugh loudly, fall often, and still whisper with wonder and exhaustion and joy. So this is where it was all leading. Maybe destiny was never about what happens to you, but about how you choose to interpret it. Two people can live through the same storm. One curses the rain, the other plants a garden. The sky doesn't change, only the meaning does. It's funny how perception turns chaos into order, tragedy into turning point, randomness into poetry. Maybe that's humanity's greatest magic trick, the ability to transform pain into philosophy. We're the only species that can lose everything and still say, maybe it was for the best, even when we don't believe it yet. That's destiny working undercover, not as a divine plan, but as resilience dressed like acceptance. It's strange how destiny keeps us humble. You think you've cracked the code and life smirks, rearranging the puzzle just enough to remind you who's really in charge. You make a plan, print it out, color code it, and then, boom, one unpredictable phone call turns the whole thing into confetti. But maybe that's the point. Maybe destiny isn't something you solve, but something you dance with. Every time you think you're leading, it spins you around and somehow you're still moving forward. The secret isn't in control, it's in rhythm, in learning how to keep your balance even when the music changes. Sometimes it feels like destiny speaks in echoes. The same mistakes, the same patterns, the same people with different faces. It's not repetition, it's rehearsal. Life keeps handing you the same lesson in new costumes until you finally stop running lines and start performing it truthfully. You realize that every argument, every disappointment, every déjà vu moment isn't punishment, it's practice. The universe isn't trying to frustrate you, it's trying to graduate you. The bad news is, you can't skip the test. The good news? The answers are always the same. Patience, humility, and the occasional sense of humor. There's something comical about how destiny uses irony as a teaching tool. You spend years searching for freedom, only to discover it was never outside of you. You chase love, and the person who finally teaches you how to love is the one who leaves. You pray for peace, and life sends you chaos so you can build your own calm. It's almost like the universe is an overzealous coach. Tough, confusing, but always preparing you for something bigger than what you asked for. And if you look closely, you'll see that every wrong turn was a setup for something unexpectedly right. It's just that destiny has a terrible delivery service. No tracking number, no estimated arrival date, just wait and see. Sometimes, destiny shows up disguised as a coincidence too bizarre to ignore. You think of someone for the first time in years, and their message pops up on your phone. You miss a flight, only to meet a stranger in the waiting area who changes your entire direction. Call it fate, call it luck, call it quantum entanglement. But moments like that make you wonder if life is playing chess while we're busy arguing over checkers. Maybe randomness is just order with better camouflage. And maybe the more we pay attention, the more we realize we're not just moving through life. Life's moving through us, connecting every decision in ways too intricate for reason alone. There's also a quiet kind of destiny that never makes headlines. The one that lives in ordinary moments, the cup of coffee that comforts you on a hard day, the song that finds you at the exact right time, the sunset that suddenly feels like it's speaking directly to you. Those moments remind us that meaning doesn't need a miracle to exist. It just needs awareness. We spend so much time chasing divine signs that we forget the divine hides in simplicity. Maybe the real miracle is that anything at all, even a small act of kindness or a deep breath, can feel like destiny when you're paying attention. It's fascinating how destiny doesn't erase choice. People love to pit them against each other, fate versus free will, as if life is a courtroom debate. But maybe they're partners, not rivals. Maybe destiny sets the stage and free will chooses the performance. You can't control the weather, but you can decide whether to curse the rain or dance in it. The script may be written, but the tone of your voice is entirely yours. And that's where the power hides. In your reaction, in your interpretation, in your willingness to turn even the worst day into a paragraph worth reading again. The thing about destiny is that it never wastes emotion. Every heartbreak, every frustration, every small joy, they're all deposits in a story you haven't finished living yet. You think it's random, but later it all ties together like a plot twist you didn't see coming. Maybe the universe is a better storyteller than we are. It builds suspense, plants foreshadowing, hides meaning in plain sight. And when it finally reveals why everything had to happen the way it did, you can't help but laugh through your tears. Because deep down you knew, you just didn't have the words yet. People sometimes say, I wish I could see the future, but imagine how exhausting that would be. No surprises, no wonder, no anticipation. Knowing everything in advance would turn life into a spoiler alert. The beauty of destiny lies in not knowing, in the suspense, in the uncertainty, in the absurdity of waking up each day and pretending we're steering the ship. Maybe that's the whole point, to be brave enough to live without knowing how the story ends. Because if we knew every scene before it played out, we'd stop participating. And destiny, above all, loves participation. And maybe, when it's all over, we'll look back and realize that destiny wasn't about control or prophecy at all. It was about connection. Every coincidence, every heartbreak, every laughter that came from nowhere, all threads in the same invisible web. It wasn't random, but it wasn't planned either. It was alive, like we were. It learned through us, adapted with us, laughed at us, cried through us. And maybe, when you finally reach the end and see how everything fit, you won't feel like a pawn in a cosmic game. You'll feel like a collaborator, because destiny was never something happening to you. It was something happening with you every step of the way, waiting for you to finally notice that you were never separate from it at all. Maybe the most ironic thing about destiny is that it keeps pretending to be chaos. It hides behind wrong addresses, delayed trains, and strangers who accidentally bump into you at the exact second your life needed a plot twist. It's mischievous like that. Playful, patient, sometimes cruel, but always strangely precise. You don't see it coming, and when it happens, you swear it's random. Then years later, you look back and realize everything lined up like a constellation you were too close to notice. That's the strange humor of existence. It gives you meaning in hindsight, just when you've stopped demanding it. It's hard not to laugh at how we keep trying to decode it. Humans are the only creatures who think a burnt toast can be a message from the divine. We search for signs in everything, cloud shapes, coincidences, Instagram quotes that mysteriously appear when we need them. And maybe we're not wrong to do so. Maybe meaning doesn't live in the event, but in our decision to see it. A black cat crossing your path can be bad luck or just a cat, but it becomes destiny the moment you assign it importance. Maybe we don't read the universe, maybe we teach it how to speak. You can see it in how people talk about missed chances. When someone says, if only I had taken that job, or moved to that city, or stayed with that person. But maybe nothing was missed. Maybe those doors closed, not because you hesitated, but because the hallway you were walking wasn't meant for you anymore. Life doesn't care about your schedule, it cares about your alignment. You can chase something for years, and when it doesn't work, you call it failure. But what if it was redirection? The universe has no problem disappointing you in the short term to protect you in the long run. It's rude like that, but efficient. There's also this weird phenomenon where destiny uses boredom as camouflage. You think nothing's happening, that your life is frozen in place, that you're stuck in repetition, but that's often when the foundation is quietly forming. Growth rarely announces itself with trumpets. It creeps in silently while you're busy scrolling through your phone. Then one day, you realize you're not reacting to things the way you used to, and that's how you know something shifted. Sometimes the real proof of destiny isn't what happens to you, but what no longer triggers you. Evolution disguised as calm. That's the universe's subtlest joke. We often imagine destiny as a destination, some grand finale waiting at the end of the road. But what if it's not a place at all? What if destiny is the road itself? Every stumble, every conversation, every delayed flight, every heartbreak, every moment that didn't go according to plan? Maybe the plan was never to arrive, but to evolve. The idea that you'll get there one day is a trick your mind plays to keep you moving. Because if destiny revealed itself too soon, you'd stop walking. It keeps just enough mystery to keep you curious, like a story that refuses to spoil its own ending. And yet, for all its unpredictability, destiny still leaves fingerprints. You can see them in the people who show up just when you need them, in the strange coincidences that seem too personal to be random, in the way certain songs seem to follow you through different stages of your life like old friends. It's almost as if destiny likes to recycle its favorite symbols just to see if you're paying attention. And when you finally do, when you start noticing the patterns, it feels less like coincidence and more like conversation. The universe doesn't shout, it winks. Sometimes destiny feels less like guidance and more like comedy. You pray for courage, and the next day, Life hands you a situation that terrifies you. You ask for love, and it sends you someone who triggers every insecurity you've ever had. You beg for peace, and the universe hands you chaos wrapped in a lesson plan. It's not punishment, it's irony. You don't grow into the qualities you want. You grow through the situations that demand them. A destiny doesn't give gifts, it gives assignments. The punchline is that they always arrive disguised as inconvenience. We tend to think destiny is something serious, almost sacred, but maybe it's also playful. Maybe it's not testing us, but teasing us, seeing if we can find lightness in the heavy, humor in the hopeless. Think about it. Every time you faced something unbearable, didn't laughter eventually sneak back in? It's like destiny waits until the worst moment and then whispers, "See, you can still laugh." That's the hidden proof of resilience. Not that the pain disappears, but that it can coexist with joy. Destiny doesn't erase darkness. It teaches you how to draw constellations out of it. And then there's the mysterious way it loops people back into our lives. Someone you thought was gone forever reappears. Older, softer, different. Sometimes to heal what was broken, sometimes to remind you why it broke. Either way, it's never random. People are like chapters that revisit you when you've learned enough to read them properly. The timing always feels suspicious, too perfect to be coincidence, too subtle to be forced. Destiny seems to have this poetic sense of closure, ensuring that everything that once felt unfinished eventually circles back. Not always to stay, but to make sense. What's most fascinating is that destiny doesn't ask for belief. It's not a religion or a rule, it's a rhythm. Whether you trust it or not, it moves. Whether you notice it or not, it arranges. The river doesn't need you to believe in its current to carry you downstream. You can resist it, exhaust yourself swimming upstream, or finally relax and let it take you somewhere new. That's the only real choice we ever have. Fight the flow or surrender to it. And when you finally do surrender, not as defeat, but as participation, you start realizing that destiny was never something happening to you. It was something happening through you. And maybe, just maybe, that's the point. Not to control the story, but to live it so fully that even the plot twists start feeling like home. It's funny how destiny never knocks like a polite guest. It barges in, unannounced, spilling coffee on the carpet of your carefully planned life. You stand there, furious at the mess, completely unaware that the spill was the point. Because while you're busy scrubbing the stain, you start noticing things. How fragile your control really was. How many tiny coincidences led you to that exact moment. It's only later, much later, that you realize destiny didn't ruin your plan. It replaced it. And what looked like chaos was actually choreography. A rhythm too complex for your mind to catch in real time. We like to pretend we're in charge. We build vision boards, write bucket lists, map our dreams like we're booking a vacation. But life doesn't follow itineraries. It laughs at them. You can plan every detail and still end up somewhere you never expected. Usually better, occasionally worse, but always exactly where you needed to be. It's as if destiny has this wicked sense of humor. You ask for adventure, and suddenly your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere. You pray for patience, and life responds with a 3-hour queue and no Wi-Fi. Maybe destiny's favorite way to teach us is through cosmic irony. What's even stranger is how often destiny uses boredom as camouflage. Most people think transformation happens during dramatic events. Heartbreaks, job losses, big decisions. But sometimes it sneaks in during the quiet stretches. The Tuesday mornings that feel meaningless, the long commutes, the small talk, the dishes. You think nothing's changing, but something inside you is being rewired in silence. It's like emotional tectonics. Invisible, slow, inevitable. Then one day, something tiny, a conversation, a song, a sunset, hits you differently, and you realize you've become someone new without even noticing the moment it happened. There's an odd comfort in realizing that maybe destiny isn't supposed to feel magical all the time. We've been trained to associate purpose with fireworks, but what if it's more like gravity? Invisible, consistent, always there whether you notice or not. It pulls you toward certain people, certain places, certain moments that make you say, this can't just be coincidence, but it also pulls you away from things you thought you wanted. The breakup that shattered you, the rejection that embarrassed you, the failure that humbled you, all were gravitational nudges, redirecting you toward something quieter but truer. Maybe the universe's rejections are just cosmic rerouting instructions. Still, we keep trying to interpret everything like it's a hidden message. We ask, what does this mean? When maybe the answer is simply, it means you're alive. Not every moment is a prophecy. Sometimes a cloud is just a cloud, not a sign. But humans are meaning-making machines. We can't help ourselves. A missed call becomes fate. A repeated number on a clock becomes divine timing. Maybe destiny isn't in the signs we read, but in the act of reading them. The search for meaning might be the point itself. Not finding it, but refusing to live without it. And yet, in our obsession to make sense of things, we often miss how funny it all is. The universe sets up elaborate plots that could rival a sitcom. You swear you'll never talk to someone again. And guess who ends up sitting next to you on a flight? You You throw out an old dream, only for it to return years later wearing a completely new outfit. It's as if life has a scriptwriter who loves irony and slow burns. The punchlines arrive late, but when they do, they're brilliant. Sometimes you don't need a moral or a message. You just need to laugh at how bizarrely precise everything turned out to be. Maybe destiny isn't about big epiphanies at all. Maybe it's about noticing the small alignments, the way a stranger's words echo something you were just thinking, or how an inconvenience accidentally saves you from something worse. When you start seeing life that way, even the hard moments start to shimmer a little. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? That's where wisdom hides, not in answers, but in the willingness to keep asking better questions. And maybe that's the secret. The universe doesn't owe you explanations, it owes you experience. Think of it like a story written by two authors, you and fate. You write the dialogue, the choices, the reactions. Destiny writes the coincidences, the timing, the things you didn't see coming. Together you create something neither could have written alone. The tension between those two authors is what gives the story texture. Without unpredictability, life would be flat. Without choice, it would be mechanical. The beauty is in the collaboration, messy, spontaneous, often ridiculous, but endlessly alive. It's easy to forget that we're not the first to wrestle with this idea. Ancient civilizations saw destiny as divine math, a balance of chaos and order, randomness and reason. The Stoics said we can't control the waves, only how we surf them. The Buddhists believed the river flows exactly where it should, no matter how we splash. Even Shakespeare, that master of irony, wrote that the fault is not in our stars, but in ourselves. Maybe they all understood the same truth. Destiny isn't about predicting the future, it's about learning how to live beautifully in uncertainty. And maybe that's the quiet punchline, that we spend our lives chasing a map that doesn't exist, only to discover that we were never lost. Every misstep, every wrong turn, every heartbreak and coincidence, they weren't detours, they were the road. You were never off track, never too late, never outside the plan. You were always walking it, one absurd, beautiful, unpredictable step at a time. And when you finally look back, when you trace the path that brought you here, you'll laugh. Not because you understand it, but because somehow, against all odds, it made perfect sense after all. Maybe destiny isn't written in the stars after all. Maybe it's scribbled in pencil on the back of a napkin, constantly being erased and rewritten as we stumble through life, spilling coffee on the table. We love to think there's some divine blueprint guiding us, a grand design where every heartbreak, every failure, every strange coincidence is part of a plan. But what if destiny is less like a plan and more like jazz, structured enough to sound intentional, chaotic enough to stay interesting? The beauty of it might not be in the notes that are played, but in the ones that surprise us. It's almost funny how obsessed we are with wanting to figure out our purpose, as if the universe is a bureaucratic office where someone's hiding our file in a locked cabinet labeled meaning. We meditate, journal, take personality tests, and still feel lost. But maybe the reason destiny feels so elusive is because it doesn't live in answers. It lives in movement. The act of searching is part of becoming. You're not supposed to find the meaning and then start living. You live and meaning slowly reveals itself, like a photo developing in water. You can't rush it. If you do, all you get is a blur. There's a strange comfort in realizing that not knowing might actually be the point. The ancient Greeks used to say that the gods punished those who demanded certainty, because certainty kills curiosity, and curiosity is what keeps the soul alive. We think of destiny as something that brings closure, but maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's what keeps us open. The very tension between what we want to know and what we can't know is what propels us forward. If we could see the entire path, we'd stop walking. Mystery, inconvenient as it is the only reason we move. Life seems to have a wicked sense of humor about timing. You can spend years waiting for something and it won't come until you stop looking. You give up on love and suddenly someone walks into your life holding all the same dreams you buried. You stop forcing your career to make sense and the opportunity you didn't even know existed lands on your lap. It's like the universe is allergic to desperation. The second you let go, things start to flow again. Maybe destiny doesn't respond to control but to surrender. Not the passive kind, but the kind that says, I trust that what's meant for me won't need to be chased. Sometimes the funniest part is realizing that destiny doesn't care about your plan at all. You can make vision boards, write affirmations, manifest with moonlight and crystals, and life will still throw you curveballs just to see how creative you are under pressure. You'll find yourself in places you swore you'd never end up, doing things you said you'd never do, and somehow it'll feel more right than anything you planned. It's humbling, almost embarrassing, how often the universe knows you better than you know yourself. The irony is that what you call losing control is often just finally being rerouted to where you belong. And yet, destiny never forces you. It's patient, almost annoyingly so. It'll let you run in circles, date the wrong people, take the wrong jobs, and repeat the same lesson until you realize it's not punishment, it's pattern recognition. The universe doesn't speak in words, it speaks in reruns. Every time you say, why does this keep happening to me? You're missing the punchline. because you keep showing up for the same episode. The moment you change your response, the plot changes too. Maybe destiny isn't something outside of you at all. Maybe it's just your own awareness, finally catching up with itself. Even science, in its quiet way, seems to agree. Physicists studying quantum entanglement found that particles separated by vast distances still react to each other instantly, as if reality itself is an invisible web of connection. So when you think of someone and they call, or when you miss a train only to discover that missing it saved your life, maybe that's not magic. Maybe it's physics with better marketing. The world isn't as random as it seems. It's just too vast for us to see all the threads. Destiny might simply be the word we invented to describe the feeling of being woven into something we don't fully understand. And perhaps that's why laughter is the most honest reaction to life's chaos. Because what else can you do when everything you thought you knew keeps turning upside down? You laugh. You laugh when the timing is wrong, when the universe answers your prayers in Morse code, when your worst day ends up being the one that changes everything. Humor is our rebellion against despair. It's the moment we look at destiny's absurdity and say, okay, I see what you did there. Maybe that's when destiny softens. Not because we've outsmarted it, but because we've learned to enjoy the ride. It's interesting how the more you trust life, the more coincidences seem to happen. As if destiny rewards openness, you start meeting the right people, not because you forced it, but because you were finally paying attention. The truth is, opportunities aren't rare. Awareness is. We miss half our destiny simply because we're too busy worrying about how it should look. Sometimes what you've been praying for is already standing in front of you, wearing a disguise too ordinary for your expectations. That's the universe's favorite joke, hiding miracles in plain sight. And maybe the grand secret of it all, the one we keep circling but never quite saying aloud, is that destiny isn't a script you're following, but a dialogue you're having. Every choice, every reaction, every laugh and heartbreak and small act of courage is part of the conversation. The universe listens, responds, adjusts. It doesn't need you to be perfect, just present. Because maybe destiny isn't about getting somewhere divine, but about realizing the divinity was already woven into every messy, miraculous moment of the journey. And if that's true, then maybe we've never taken a wrong step. We were just dancing to music we couldn't yet hear. Until now. Maybe destiny was never meant to be understood, only experienced. Like a movie where you don't get the plot until the credits roll, but somehow it still feels right. Life has this strange rhythm where everything seems disconnected until one day it clicks, and you think, oh, that's why that happened. But the funny part is, by the time you understand it, the lesson has already moved on to something else. Destiny is like a teacher who erases the board the moment you start taking notes. It doesn't want you to memorize, it wants you to live. The idea that everything has meaning is both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because it suggests our suffering isn't wasted. Terrifying because it means nothing is accidental. Not even the awkward conversations, the failed relationships, or the mornings you wake up wondering if you took a wrong turn somewhere. And yet, maybe those wrong turns aren't wrong at all. Maybe they're scenic routes, designed to teach us what straight roads never could. Because, let's be honest, we don't grow when things go smoothly. We grow when life throws us a riddle written in invisible ink, and then sits back to watch us squint at it. There's something oddly poetic about how destiny disguises itself as inconvenience. Think of the moments that felt like setbacks but ended up saving you. The missed flight that prevented you from being somewhere you weren't meant to be. The heartbreak that pushed you toward a version of love that actually fit. The job rejection that forced you to start something on your own. In the moment, it all feels cruel. But later, when the pieces fall into place, you can't help but laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's too perfect not to be. It's almost like destiny has a dark sense of humor. You're welcome, it whispers, while you're still crying. We humans have a strange addiction to control. We want to be the authors of our stories, but life insists on being the editor. You write something dramatic, and destiny cuts it for pacing. You plan a happy ending, and it says, let's add some conflict for character development. It's annoying, but maybe necessary. Because without those edits, without the surprises, delays, and rewrites, we'd never find out who we are when the story refuses to go as planned. Maybe the real masterpiece isn't the one we write, but the one that rewrites us. There's also this paradox about destiny that no one really talks about. It only becomes visible in reverse. You never know you're in a defining moment until it's over. The job interview that changed your life feels like just another Tuesday until you're sitting years later connecting the dots backward. That conversation, that accident, that random encounter, they all turn into landmarks once you've walked far enough to see the pattern. Maybe that's the quiet brilliance of destiny. It hides the map, so you have no choice but to trust your feet. Of course, destiny doesn't always whisper softly. Sometimes it yells. It throws you into chaos just to get your attention. You keep ignoring your intuition, so it slams a few doors. You keep holding on to what's already over, so it lights a match under it. We call it bad luck, but maybe it's just cosmic tough love. The universe has a way of clearing space for what's next, and it rarely asks for permission first. It's the spiritual equivalent of ripping off a bandage, painful, messy, but necessary for healing. But not every lesson needs to hurt. Some arrive with laughter, like the time you embarrassed yourself horribly and realized later that no one actually cared, or when you lost something you thought was essential only to discover how little you needed it. These small, humbling moments are destiny's gentler side, the way it teaches you to loosen your grip, to stop taking everything so seriously. Maybe that's why the wisest people often have the best sense of humor. They've learned to laugh not at life, but with it. Because they've finally realized the joke is cosmic, and we're all in on it. Even science seems to conspire with this idea. Chaos theory tells us that tiny changes, the flap of a butterfly's wings, a random decision, a chance encounter, can ripple across time in ways impossible to predict. Every moment, every action, every breath is part of an infinite chain reaction shaping the next. If that's not destiny, what is? It's humbling to think that maybe we're not walking through a random universe, but through a symphony so complex we can only hear one note at a time. Sometimes, destiny arrives not through grand events, but through stillness. When you stop running, stop panicking, stop trying to outsmart the flow of things, life starts revealing itself. It's in the quiet that clarity sneaks in, that small voice that says, "You already know." We drown it out with noise and distraction because silence feels uncomfortable. But silence is where destiny waits. It's not rushing to meet you. It's waiting for you to slow down enough to meet it. And maybe that's the most profound twist of all. That destiny isn't something chasing you from the future, but something unfolding from within. Every choice, every hesitation, every tiny act of courage is a collaboration between what you want and what life knows you can handle. You don't follow destiny like a trail, you grow into it. And maybe that's why it's so hard to see. Because it doesn't live ahead of you or behind you, but inside you, quietly weaving meaning through every mistake, every miracle, and every ordinary moment you thought didn't matter. It's not waiting to be found. It's been finding you all along. One unexpected turn, one stubborn laugh, one perfectly timed coincidence at a time. Maybe destiny doesn't arrive as revelation, but as repetition. The same lessons wearing new disguises, the same feelings you thought you outgrew returning to check your progress. Life seems to love reruns. Except this time, you're older, a little wiser, and you finally see that the thing you called bad luck might have actually been rehearsal. We talk about moving forward as if growth were a straight line, but maybe it's more like a spiral. You keep revisiting old themes until you finally understand the melody. It's almost comical how the universe keeps handing you the same homework with a slightly different title, just to see if you'll still copy the wrong answers. It's funny, too, how destiny often tests you right after you declare you've learned your lesson. You say, "I'm done with toxic relationships." And the next person who texts you is a walking red flag wrapped in charm. You swear you'll never repeat a mistake, and then, surprise, the same pattern knocks on your door wearing a new outfit and better cologne. Maybe destiny does that on purpose, not to mock us, but to show that healing isn't a one-time event. It's a series of tiny choices made when no one's watching, the quiet decision to respond differently this time. Growth doesn't announce itself. It sneaks in disguised as déjà vu. Sometimes, though, destiny teaches through contrast. By showing you everything you're not. You think you want a certain dream, chase it for years, and when you finally get it, you realize it doesn't fit. The job you begged for turns into a cage. The relationship you idealized becomes routine. The city that once thrilled you starts feeling small. That's not failure, that's clarity. Life lets you taste what you thought you wanted, so you can learn what you actually need. The punchline, of course, is that the lesson always costs more than you expect, but maybe that's the only way we learn to value truth over fantasy. We rarely appreciate how messy destiny is. It doesn't arrive like a beam of light with a choir in the background. It's more like a series of suspicious coincidences that only make sense in hindsight. You trip, you lose, you stumble into something embarrassing, and later you realize it was the exact experience that shaped your empathy, or humility, or patience. But at the time, it just feels like the universe has a twisted sense of humor. You ask for strength, and it sends you struggle. You pray for wisdom, and it gives you confusion. You beg for peace, and life hands you a challenge that forces you to find it within yourself. Destiny answers every prayer. It just translates them into lessons. What makes this all more interesting is how we underestimate the influence of timing. We think we missed opportunities, but sometimes we were protected from them. We think we were delayed, but maybe we were being prepared. The gap between wanting something and being ready for it is where destiny does its best work. It's frustrating, like being stuck in traffic on the way to your own miracle. But maybe waiting isn't punishment, maybe it's calibration. The universe needs time to rearrange the scenery so you can arrive when the stage is set. And yes, it often takes longer than you'd like, but when you finally arrive, you understand why the delay mattered. Even the mistakes that haunt you have their own strange precision. Think about all the times you've said, "If I had just done this differently," but what if you weren't supposed to? What if that embarrassing moment, that missed chance, that impulsive yes or no, was the exact domino that had to fall for everything else to unfold? There's a strange kind of mercy in realizing that even your errors might have been part of the architecture. Maybe destiny isn't some flawless divine design. Maybe it's improvisation, a jazz song made from your missteps, always finding rhythm in the wrong notes. And then there are the people, the ones who enter your life like comets, fast, bright, unforgettable, and then vanish, leaving you wondering if it was all just coincidence. Maybe they weren't meant to stay. Maybe they were messengers. Each person you meet brings something: a mirror, a map, a lesson, disguised as love or loss. The ones who hurt you teach boundaries. The ones who heal you teach trust. And the ones who confuse you, well, they teach patience, mostly. We tend to judge relationships by duration, but maybe destiny measures them by impact. Some souls only need a moment to change everything. What's fascinating is that we still try to control what was never ours to control. We obsess over the how and the when, forgetting that destiny's favorite element is surprise. It doesn't like to be managed. It likes to see your face when everything you resisted turns out to be exactly what you needed. You plan for safety, and destiny plans for transformation. The universe doesn't care about your comfort zone. It's interested in your capacity. That's why life keeps stretching you until you realize you were never meant to fit into something predictable. The irony is that the more you surrender, the more in sync everything becomes, almost as if destiny was waiting for you to stop micromanaging. Even humor seems to be one of destiny's tools. Think of how absurd life can be: the timing, the coincidences, the cosmic jokes. You spend months trying to get over someone, and just when you finally do, they text you, "Hey, thinking of you." You finally fix your car and the washing machine breaks. It's almost as if the universe is running a sitcom and we're all unwitting characters. But maybe laughter is what keeps us sane in this unpredictable script. When you learn to laugh at the absurdity instead of resisting it, you stop being a victim of fate and start being a co-writer of it. And maybe, after everything, all the chaos, all the beauty, all the near misses and miraculous alignments, destiny isn't about perfection at all. It's about participation. It's about showing up, messy and uncertain, and saying yes to the unfolding. You don't have to understand the choreography to dance. You don't have to know the plot to keep reading. Maybe the goal was never to master life, but to marvel at it, to wake up each day curious enough to see what happens next. Because somewhere between the mistakes and the miracles, destiny is still writing. And somehow, against all odds, it's writing you exactly where you're meant to be. Maybe destiny isn't some cosmic GPS guiding you to a fixed destination, but more like a mischievous travel companion who keeps changing the route just to see how you react. You set your plans, plot your coordinates, and destiny leans over with that sly grin saying, "Interesting choice. Let's see how that works out for you." It's infuriating and hilarious all at once. You try to get from point A to point B, and somehow you end up at C, which, annoyingly, turns out to be better than anything you'd planned. Life loves irony. It's like being trapped in a movie written by a director who refuses to stick to the script, and the only thing you can do is improvise. Badly at first, then beautifully once you stop pretending you're in control. What's strange is how we romanticize destiny, imagining it as something gentle and poetic, a string of signs leading us home. But more often than not, it feels like being dragged across gravel while the universe whispers, "Trust the process." You fall, you fail, you lose people, you lose yourself, and somehow, through all that chaos, you end up closer to who you were meant to be. It's as if destiny builds you by breaking you, stripping away every illusion until all that's left is the raw, unpolished truth of who you are. Pain isn't punishment. It's the sculptor's chisel. And maybe that's the cruel brilliance of it. Destiny doesn't ask if you're comfortable, only if you're awake. Still, there's something oddly comforting in realizing that even the messes have meaning. You look back on the disasters, the jobs that didn't work out, the people who left, the doors that slammed, and somehow it all fits together, like a mosaic made from broken glass. You needed every shard to reflect the light. You just couldn't see it when you were bleeding from the cuts. There's this human tendency to call things bad timing, when really, they were perfect timing for growth. You weren't ready for the thing you wanted, or maybe the thing wasn't ready for you. Either way, life knew. It always does. It's almost comical how destiny keeps replaying the same lesson until you finally stop ignoring it. You swear you've learned to say no to chaos, and then chaos shows up with better hair and a smoother voice. You promise to trust yourself, and the universe sends a test wrapped in temptation. It's like life is running a loyalty program for your evolution. Every time you pass a lesson, you earn a little more peace, but only after you've earned a PhD in frustration. Maybe that's why older souls seem calmer. They've stopped arguing with the syllabus. They just turn in their homework with a smirk, knowing the teacher is going to mark it destined. The timing of everything continues to be destiny's favorite joke. We spend half our lives rushing, desperate to reach milestones before we've even learned how to stand still. Then one day, life hands you everything you thought you wanted, and you realize you're not who you were when you wanted it. You've changed, evolved, outgrown your own dream. That's when you understand that destiny isn't linear. It's fluid. It changes with you. The version of yourself you're becoming has different needs than the version who made all those plans. Maybe that's why letting go feels so painful. It's the sound of an old dream making space for a truer one. And yet, we keep trying to make sense of it all with logic, as if we can rationalize the irrational. We want to file destiny into neat categories: fate, coincidence, cause, and effect. But life refuses to be that tidy. The things that shape us most are rarely the things we see coming. A random conversation, a song on the radio, a stranger's kindness, these are the tiny hinges on which entire lifetimes turn. It's humbling to think that something so vast can be redirected by something so small. Maybe destiny isn't written in the stars after all, but in the pauses, in the split seconds where you make a choice that feels insignificant but changes everything. There's also the absurd but strangely profound truth that destiny has terrible communication skills. It never tells you what it's doing. It just drops cryptic hints and waits for you to connect the dots. The signs are never clear when you're living them. They're like inside jokes you only get years later. You'll laugh about it eventually, but in the moment, it's just confusing. The universe is the friend who texts, "Trust me," and then disappears for 6 months, and somehow you still do. Because deep down you've seen enough miracles disguised as mistakes to know that even silence has intention. Sometimes the best evidence of destiny is how easily things fall into place once you stop forcing them. You've probably felt it. That shift from tension to flow, from trying to make something happen to letting it happen. It's not magic, it's alignment. It's like swimming with the current instead of against it. The same effort suddenly carries you further, and you realize destiny was never blocking you. It was waiting for you to stop thrashing. When you finally relax into trust, the universe moves faster than you ever could. Maybe it was never about doing more. Maybe it was about learning to do less without losing faith. And what about the people destiny brings into your orbit? Some arrive like storms, others like sunlight. They all serve a purpose. Some to shake you, some to soothe you, some to mirror the parts of yourself you refuse to see. The most difficult ones often turn out to be your greatest teachers. They show you where you're still unhealed, where your boundaries wobble, where your love still confuses need with fear. It's a cruel education, but it's the only one that sticks. You can read every book on destiny, but nothing teaches like heartbreak. Pain, unfortunately, is the universe's favorite tutor. And perhaps that's the strange grace of it all, that destiny doesn't care about perfection. It cares about participation. It's not testing you, it's including you. Every mistake, every wrong turn, every laugh, every surrender becomes part of the masterpiece. You don't have to know what's coming next. You just have to keep showing up. Maybe that's the quietest wisdom we can carry, to meet life not with fear or control, but with curiosity. To walk into every new day thinking, maybe this is the one where it all makes sense. Or maybe it's the one where I finally stop needing it to. Either way, you're still exactly where you're meant to be, right in the middle of the chaos, laughing with destiny as it writes the next line of your story. Maybe destiny doesn't whisper in words, but in timing, the strange, invisible rhythm that links the things we can't explain. You bump into someone you haven't seen in years, right when you were thinking about them. You miss a train and avoid an accident. You take a detour and discover a view so breathtaking you wonder if you were meant to get lost. It's easy to brush those things off as coincidence, but deep down you feel it, that eerie synchronicity that makes you stop and think something bigger is playing with the pieces. Maybe that's what destiny really is, the silent architecture behind chaos disguised as chance. It's fascinating how life seems to wait for the exact moment when we finally give up control to deliver what we wanted all along. You spend months forcing a door open, and when you finally walk away in frustration, it swings open by itself. You call it luck, but maybe it's alignment. The universe's way of saying you were never supposed to kick it down, you just had to stop standing in front of it. Destiny has an impeccable sense of irony that way. It refuses to cooperate with desperation. It only dances with trust. The moment you unclench your hands, everything starts moving again, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for you to exhale first. We love to tell ourselves that destiny is about arrival, reaching the goal, meeting the right person, getting the reward. But what if it's not about arrival at all? What if destiny is just the act of moving forward, of staying curious, even when you're lost? The most interesting people you'll ever meet are the ones who got lost and decided to make a home there. They stopped chasing certainty and started building meaning out of the unknown. There's something strangely powerful about that kind of surrender. Not giving up, but giving in. Because sometimes the thing you're fighting isn't failure, it's direction. There's a strange comedy in how destiny uses discomfort as motivation. You wouldn't leave the wrong job, the wrong city, or the wrong relationship unless life made it unbearable to stay. You think you're being punished, but really, you're being pushed. The universe doesn't like half measures. It prefers dramatic exits. It turns up the heat, not because it wants to see you sweat, but because it knows you won't move until you're uncomfortable enough to change. Think of it as cosmic tough love. Life rarely shouts, but when it does, it's because you ignored all the polite whispers. And while we're talking about discomfort, isn't it strange how destiny always pairs growth with humility? You think you're ready to conquer the world, and then something happens that reminds you how fragile you really are. You trip over your own ego and land face first in reality. It's embarrassing, but it's also grounding. Maybe that's why the most compassionate people are the ones who've been broken a few times. They've seen how unpredictable life can be. They've learned to laugh at the chaos because fighting it is exhausting. There's wisdom in humor. It's the soul's way of admitting that control was never part of the deal. Every now and then, destiny throws in a wild card. Something so unexpected that it shakes your entire sense of direction. You lose something you thought you couldn't live without, and somehow you're still breathing. You meet someone who changes your understanding of love not by staying, but by leaving. These are the moments that rearrange your internal compass. They remind you that destiny isn't about comfort, it's about evolution. You can't grow into your next chapter while clinging to the last one, and yet that's exactly what we try to do. We bargain with the past, hoping to drag it into a future that no longer has room for it. The universe just watches, amused, waiting for us to drop what's no longer meant to be carried. It's funny how destiny has a way of timing everything to the edge of our patience. Things never happen too soon or too late. They happen right when we've exhausted every illusion of control. You can't rush divine timing any more than you can rush sunrise. It comes when it's ready and not a minute before. Of course, that's infuriating when you're the one waiting. You want signs, guarantees, a sneak peek of how it all turns out. But if life gave you the answers early, you'd probably stop living the questions. The tension, the waiting, the uncertainty. That's where character is built. That's where destiny hides its most valuable lessons. Some cultures understood this better than we do. The Japanese have a word, ikigai, which roughly translates to reason for being. It's not about destiny as something fixed, but as something fluid. A balance between what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what sustains you. It's less about fate and more about flow. Ancient Stoics in Greece believed something similar, that destiny isn't what happens, but how you respond to what happens. You can't control the wind, they said, but you can adjust your sails. It's strange how thousands of years later we still need to relearn the same truth, that surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Destiny also has a strange relationship with humor. You plan your life with spreadsheets and goals, and the universe answers with coincidences and chaos. You say, this time I've got it all figured out, and life says, that's adorable. The irony is that the moments you thought were mistakes often turn out to be the ones that mattered most. The job you didn't get led you to the passion you never planned for. The heartbreak that destroyed you opened your heart to something deeper. You can almost imagine destiny sitting somewhere, sipping coffee, saying, you'll thank me later. And annoyingly, you do. Sometimes destiny hides in the smallest acts. A kind word, a delayed train, a random decision to turn left instead of right. We expect fate to arrive with thunder, but it usually tiptoes in. You won't recognize it in the moment because it doesn't want recognition. It wants participation. Every choice you make, no matter how small, ripples outward into an infinite web of connections. It's almost comedic how powerful we are without realizing it, how a casual word or gesture can alter the entire trajectory of someone else's life. Maybe that's why destiny feels both terrifying and sacred, because it's not happening to us, it's happening through us. And maybe that's the quietest truth of all, that destiny was never a finish line, but a conversation. It listens when you speak through your choices, it answers through the consequences, and it laughs when you pretend not to hear. The point was never to predict it, only to participate in it, to live it as honestly and courageously as you can, even when you have no idea what it's building. Because maybe the mystery isn't meant to frustrate us, but to free us. Maybe destiny's not a path we follow, but a story we co-write. One spontaneous, ridiculous, miraculous line at a time. Maybe destiny isn't a map at all. Maybe it's a mirror. Everything it shows you is really a reflection of who you are in that moment. You think life is happening to you, but it's mostly happening through you. The people you meet, the obstacles you face, the patterns that repeat, they're all echoes of your own becoming. You attract lessons dressed as circumstances, and every time you resist them, they just circle back wearing a different outfit. It's not punishment, it's persistence. Destiny doesn't get tired, but it does get creative. You ignore one sign, and the universe says, all right, let's make it louder this time. Thus, there's something oddly comforting about realizing that the universe doesn't hold grudges. You can make every mistake imaginable, and life will still find new ways to guide you home. You can take the long route, the scenic route, or the completely chaotic route, and somehow you'll still end up where you're meant to be, just with better stories to tell. It's almost comedic how stubbornly life refuses to give up on us. We can doubt, delay, and detour all we want, but the current keeps flowing, gently, insistently toward who we're becoming. Destiny, it seems, has infinite patience, far more than we do. It's strange how often destiny feels like contradiction. It gives you freedom and structure at the same time. Like a dance where you can choose the steps, but the rhythm never changes. You get to improvise, to make mistakes, to spin wildly off beat, and still, somehow, you're pulled back into sync. The balance between choice and fate is the most elegant paradox in existence. You can't control the song, but you can control how you move to it. Some people stomp, some glide, some just stand still in awe. The music doesn't stop either way. Maybe the point was never to master the dance, but to let the dance master you. Think about how many times you've tried to force something that clearly wasn't ready. You water the seed, shout at it, beg it to sprout faster, and it doesn't. Then one day, you forget about it, and it blooms without permission. That's destiny's sense of humor. It delivers miracles when you stop micromanaging them. It's like the universe is saying, I was going to give it to you anyway, but I wanted to see if you'd trust me first. The irony is that when you finally surrender, you realize it wasn't about waiting for the right moment. It was about becoming the person who could handle it when it arrived. We spend so much time treating destiny like a math problem, trying to calculate our next move so we can guarantee the result. But maybe destiny is more like art, messy, abstract, beautiful in its imperfection. You can't analyze your way into understanding it. You can only feel it. Think about the moments in your life that made no sense at the time, but later turned out to be pivotal. They were brushstrokes you didn't recognize until the whole picture appeared. Some strokes were dark, some bright, but all of them necessary. The masterpiece isn't just the final image. It's the process of becoming aware that you were painting it all along. Destiny also has an odd relationship with timing. It never rushes, and it never stalls, but it does like to watch you panic while you wait. You think something's not happening because you failed, but maybe it's just simmering, waiting for the right temperature. The most delicious parts of life take time to cook. If you open the oven too early, you ruin the flavor. The waiting is uncomfortable, but maybe that's where the seasoning happens, where patience becomes perspective. It's funny how later the same waiting that once drove you mad becomes the very thing you're grateful for. If life gave you everything instantly, you'd never learn how to savor it. And isn't it fascinating how destiny uses people as catalysts? You meet someone who turns your world upside down, not because they're meant to stay, but because they're meant to stir something awake in you. Sometimes they come to show you love, sometimes to show you limits, sometimes to show you the parts of yourself you'd buried under survival. You think they broke your heart, but maybe they just cracked it open enough for light to get in. The ones who challenge you most often push you toward your next version. That doesn't make the pain less real. It just makes it less meaningless. Destiny also seems to adore irony. You spend years searching for happiness, only to discover it was hiding in the simplest moments. A laugh shared with someone you love, the way sunlight lands on your kitchen counter, the quiet realization that you're okay. You chase external validation until you realize the peace you were chasing was an inside job. It's cosmic comedy at its finest. The thing you were desperate to find was never lost. You were just too busy sprinting past it. Maybe destiny lets us chase illusions not to punish us, but to exhaust us enough to finally notice what's been true all along. Sometimes you catch glimpses of destiny's intelligence in the strangest places, like how a small disappointment creates room for something much bigger, or how one no protects you from years of regret. It's only from a distance that you can see the pattern, and when you do, it's humbling. You realize how little you actually needed to control, how many times life was silently protecting you while you were complaining about delays. The older you get, the more you laugh at your younger self, the one who thought they knew what was best. Maybe destiny's greatest mercy is saving us from our own premature certainty. And perhaps the real beauty of it all is that destiny never stops unfolding. Even when you think you've reached your purpose, life hands you a new one. Every chapter, every ending, every unexpected twist is a continuation, not a conclusion. You don't arrive at destiny, you live it, through choices, through laughter, through the constant rhythm of becoming. There's no final revelation waiting at the end of the road, only deeper versions of the same truth, that everything, even the mistakes, was leading you somewhere meaningful. And when you finally look back, maybe you'll realize that destiny was never something written in advance. It was being written every time you decided to keep going, even when you didn't understand the plot. Maybe destiny isn't something we walk toward. Maybe it's something that walks beside us, quietly, patiently, pretending to be coincidence until we're ready to notice. It doesn't need our permission. It just needs our participation. Every decision, even the small ones, reshapes it. That's the beautiful trick. You think destiny is fixed, but it bends and twists every time you choose differently. You change one tiny variable, a conversation you almost didn't have, a chance you almost didn't take. And suddenly, your entire story rewrites itself. Life, it seems, is less about being right and more about being awake. It's easy to laugh when you realize how many times destiny disguised itself as disaster. You thought you were losing everything, but you were just being cleared for what was next. The job that fired you, the breakup that broke you, the door that slammed in your face, all of them quietly rearranged your path, like divine GPS recalculating after a wrong turn. You screamed, "Why me?" And destiny whispered, "Just wait." It's almost rude how patient it is. You're panicking over the timing, and it's sitting there, sipping eternity, saying, "You'll understand later." And when later finally comes, you feel both grateful and ridiculous. There's something absurdly poetic about how destiny uses irony as a form of education. The things you once feared become the things that free you. The people who hurt you end up teaching you the language of boundaries. You spend your youth trying to prove yourself to others, only to spend adulthood trying to prove nothing at all. It's like life insists on flipping your script until you stop performing and start existing. You think you're chasing goals, but you're actually chasing versions of yourself. And destiny, like a patient director, keeps yelling, "Cut," until you drop the act. Sometimes destiny's lessons arrive through people who barely stay long enough to be remembered. A stranger gives you advice that sticks for years. A fleeting encounter changes your direction more than a lifetime of planning ever could. It's humbling to think that someone can appear in your story for 5 minutes and leave fingerprints that never fade. Maybe that's why we cross paths with certain souls, not to keep them, but to be altered by them. Every connection, no matter how brief, leaves an invisible residue on who we become. It's strange how often we call something wrong simply because it didn't happen our way. But if you zoom out far enough, the wrong turns start looking like detours that kept you from falling off a cliff. Life has a way of protecting us through disappointment. You didn't get what you wanted because it would have delayed what you needed. It's not rejection, it's redirection, though it rarely feels that graceful in the moment. Humans aren't great at perspective. We're the only species that can turn a temporary obstacle into a full existential crisis. A squirrel doesn't doubt its life's purpose just because it dropped a nut. And then there's the great illusion of control. We plan, predict, and project as if destiny cares about our calendars. But destiny prefers improvisation. It loves spontaneity, the way jazz musicians love chaos that still somehow makes music. The second you think you've mastered the melody, life changes the key. And that's not cruelty, it's rhythm. Because what's the point of the dance if every step is predictable? You can't choreograph growth, you can only surrender to it. Maybe that's why life waits for us to stop trying so hard, because that's when we start moving in sync with it instead of against it. You can see it, even in the mundane. Think of how many little accidents ended up shaping your path. The day you took a different route and saw a sign that changed your mind. The time you missed a call that ended up saving you from a bad decision. We underestimate the intelligence of randomness, but maybe randomness is just destiny's sense of humor. It's constantly weaving miracles into ordinary chaos, and most of us are too busy scrolling to notice. Maybe divine intervention doesn't sound like a trumpet. Maybe it sounds like the microwave dinging at the exact moment you finally understand something about yourself. It's funny how destiny rarely feels like destiny when it's happening. It feels inconvenient, unfair, or just plain confusing. Only later, when the chaos cools, do we see how precisely everything fit together. It's like assembling a puzzle without knowing the picture. You spend half your time frustrated, convinced some pieces don't belong, only to discover they were the key all along. Destiny never wastes a piece, even the jagged ones, especially the jagged ones. Because those are the pieces that shape the whole image, the ones that teach you how to make room for imperfection without losing coherence. Sometimes the greatest gift destiny gives us is letting things fall apart. We hate that idea, of course. We're obsessed with keeping things intact. But some doors have to collapse for light to get in. Some identities need to crumble so that authenticity can breathe. The universe isn't punishing you when it takes things away. It's pruning. It's sculpting the excess so that what's real can finally be seen. And maybe that's why the most peaceful people aren't the ones who have everything, but the ones who've stopped trying to hold on to what isn't meant to stay. And at the end of it all, destiny isn't really about destination. It's about depth. It's about becoming more present, more aware, more alive. It's not waiting for you at the finish line. It's walking with you through every messy, miraculous mile. Every laugh, every heartbreak, every quiet morning when you don't know what's next, that's where it hides. Maybe the only true mistake is thinking you're off track when you've been exactly where you needed to be all along. Because destiny doesn't speak in certainty. It speaks in rhythm, in coincidence, in the slow unfolding of moments that make no sense until you've lived them. And by the time you finally understand, you're not chasing it anymore. You're living it, with open hands, a grateful heart, and a laugh that finally sounds like peace. Maybe destiny isn't something waiting for you out there in the future. Maybe it's something quietly unfolding in every ordinary moment you survive, without realizing its weight. We imagine destiny as this grand reveal, like a door we'll one day walk through with a choir of angels and perfect lighting. But in truth, it's more subtle. It shows up in the silence between choices, in the hesitation before a yes, in the way a single decision reshapes the rest of your life without any announcement. Sometimes, the most important turning points don't even feel like turning points. They just feel like Tuesdays. It's strange how destiny often hides behind inconvenience. You miss a flight and meet someone in the airport lounge who changes the trajectory of your life. You spill coffee on yourself before an interview and end up talking to a stranger who becomes your business partner. We're trained to curse interruptions, but maybe interruptions are the universe's favorite tool. It doesn't move in straight lines, it moves in detours. The places you didn't plan to go are often the ones where something essential waits. Not necessarily success or romance or fame, but clarity. Sometimes, destiny just wants to show you what truly matters by disrupting everything that doesn't. There's something oddly human about how we try to outsmart timing. We want everything on our schedule: love, purpose, success, peace, as if the universe runs on Google Calendar. But destiny doesn't rush, and it doesn't explain itself. It watches us panic, cry, overthink, and then, when we finally run out of energy, it slips in and quietly fixes things. It's almost cruel in its precision. You spend years preparing for something, and it happens the moment you stop trying to control it. Maybe that's the joke. Destiny isn't late. We're just early. We're so obsessed with being ready that we forget readiness is often born from chaos, not perfection. You start to notice that destiny has a sense of rhythm. It repeats patterns, but not to punish, to teach. You find yourself in familiar situations with new players, the same lesson in a different costume. It's like life is saying, let's see if you've learned the choreography this time. And the moment you finally respond differently, everything shifts. Growth always begins when repetition ends. We think we're cursed by bad luck, but maybe we're just stubborn students. The universe isn't cruel, it's persistent. It's patient enough to replay the same song until you finally stop dancing to the wrong beat. Humor might be destiny's most underrated teaching method. Think about how often you've looked back and laughed at what once broke you. You were convinced your world was ending, but all it did was make room for something better. Tragedy, given enough time, often transforms into comedy. You learn to find irony in the chaos, because otherwise you'd lose your mind. The universe seems to love a good setup. It lets you build expectations, just to dismantle them in the most poetic way possible. It's as if Destiny's been binge-watching sitcoms for centuries and decided to make you the main character. The laugh track is delayed, but it always comes. Maybe that's why the wisest people are often the funniest. They've stopped fighting the absurdity of existence and started laughing with it. They understand that the punchline of every struggle is perspective. You can either spend your life arguing with reality, or you can learn to enjoy its plot twists. There's something liberating about not needing every moment to make sense. Maybe destiny doesn't want you to analyze it. Maybe it wants you to dance with it, laugh at it, flirt with it a little. After all, if everything's scripted, what's the fun in improvisation? It's fascinating how destiny tends to reward the brave, not because bravery guarantees success, but because it proves trust. Every big leap, the move to a new city, the decision to start over, the choice to love again after heartbreak, is an act of faith disguised as recklessness. You don't know where you'll land, but you jump anyway. And in that suspension between fear and flight, something magical happens. The universe catches you. Not always softly, but always precisely. Maybe courage is just destiny's favorite language. The signal that says, all right, they're ready for the next chapter. But destiny doesn't just operate on the grand scale. It lives in the micro moments. The text you almost didn't send, the phone call you almost ignored, the gut feeling you decided to follow. These are the threads that weave the fabric of your life. Every yes and no creates ripples, and those ripples become stories. Sometimes the most random decisions carry the most profound consequences. It's humbling and a little terrifying to realize how much of your life is built on accidents that turned out to be divine timing in disguise. Of course, not every path is smooth. Destiny loves contrast. It teaches light through shadow, joy through pain, patience through waiting. You don't realize how much you've changed until you find yourself calm in a storm that would have destroyed you before. Maybe that's the quiet graduation ceremony of the soul, the moment you stop reacting out of fear and start responding from wisdom. Life doesn't announce your transformation. It reveals it when you least expect it. You only see how far you've come when something tries to pull you back and fails. And perhaps the real secret, the one destiny keeps hiding in plain sight, is that there's no finish line, only flow. We keep waiting for the moment everything clicks, for the grand arrival that confirms we've made it. But there's no such moment because making it isn't about reaching, it's about noticing. Every second of awareness, every burst of laughter, every act of kindness is part of the journey, not a step toward it. Maybe destiny isn't the story being told, but the storyteller's joy in telling it. It's not about where you're going, but how awake you are to the miracle of being here, right now, perfectly imperfect, hilariously human, and exactly where you were meant to be all along. Maybe destiny is less about knowing where you're going and more about learning to trust the road beneath your feet, even when it feels like it's disappearing as you walk. We spend so much time trying to decode meaning, waiting for life to give us a clear sign, a grand revelation, something cinematic. But most of destiny's greatest moments come disguised as confusion. The wrong bus that takes you somewhere new, the conversation that starts awkwardly but changes everything, the delay that makes you furious until you realize it kept you from something far worse. Life doesn't always shout its reasons. Sometimes it mumbles them under its breath and expects you to listen closely. It's almost funny how we demand clarity from the universe while barely giving ourselves time to breathe. We want guarantees, step-by-step instructions, cosmic blueprints. But destiny doesn't deal in blueprints, it deals in breadcrumbs. One tiny clue at a time. barely enough to make sense, but just enough to keep you moving. You only see the pattern once you've walked far enough to turn around. Until then, it feels like nonsense, but that's the beauty of it. If destiny showed you the full map, you'd never take a step. You'd overanalyze every detour and question every storm. It gives you uncertainty on purpose, because that's how it teaches faith. And what a mischievous teacher it is. You say you want growth, and destiny delivers it wrapped in discomfort. You ask for love, and it sends you someone who tests every boundary you've ever set. You pray for peace, and life hands you chaos until you realize peace was never about the absence of noise. It was about staying calm inside it. The universe has a wicked sense of humor. It grants wishes in riddles, like a trickster sage saying, "Sure, you can have that, but let's see if you can handle the lesson that comes with it." Maybe that's why so many people say, be careful what you wish for, because destiny will give it to you, just not in the way you expect. You start to notice how often destiny uses contrast to teach appreciation. You can't value light without knowing darkness. You don't appreciate stillness until you've survived chaos. Even joy feels sharper when it's been earned. The universe has this wild balance sheet where every happiness seems to require a little heartbreak first. But maybe that's not punishment. Maybe it's preparation, like emotional weightlifting. Each heartbreak builds strength for the next miracle. The irony is that while we complain about how heavy it all feels, we're unknowingly training for the kind of joy that only the brave can carry. And then there's timing, destiny's favorite punchline. It's never early, never late, always inconveniently perfect. You can spend years thinking nothing's happening, and then everything happens at once. You lose, you win, you meet someone, you change cities, and you realize destiny wasn't ignoring you. It was aligning the dominoes. You just weren't supposed to see them yet. Life's timing often looks cruel until it reveals its symmetry. There's something humbling about realizing the delays you cursed were actually protection. If some doors had opened sooner, you would have walked through them unprepared. The universe is slow not because it's careless, but because it's crafting precision. There's also a quiet comedy in how destiny tests your sense of patience. You swear you've learned to let go, and then it throws you a situation tailor-made to prove otherwise. You say, "I'm done worrying about outcomes," and immediately check your phone for confirmation that something worked out. Humans love to proclaim spiritual maturity until life asks for proof. But maybe destiny doesn't test us to expose our weakness. It tests us to reveal our readiness. Every trial, every frustration, every moment that feels like, why again, is actually destiny asking, are you sure you've learned this yet? Sometimes it's not the big moments that define destiny, but the small acts that ripple quietly through time. A word of kindness you don't remember saying might save someone's hope. A seemingly insignificant decision, changing jobs, calling a friend, walking a different route, might alter the entire web of events around you. We think destiny is grand, but maybe it's intimate. It hides in the details, in the unnoticed gestures that build our character. Every choice, even the ones we make on autopilot, becomes a seed planted somewhere in the soil of the future. And the funny part? Half the time, we don't even recognize our own miracles until they bloom years later. Even the way destiny weaves people into our stories feels intentional. Some enter like fireworks, bright, sudden, unforgettable, and some like slow-burning candles, illuminating our path quietly. But every encounter serves a purpose. The ones who love us teach us grace, the ones who hurt us teach us boundaries, the ones who confuse us teach us patience, and the ones who leave teach us how to continue anyway. Sometimes people aren't meant to stay forever. They're meant to wake us up. It's bittersweet, but maybe the purpose of love isn't permanence, it's transformation. It's fascinating how we resist endings when they're often the most accurate proof of destiny's design. We cling, we beg, we bargain, anything to avoid change. But destiny doesn't negotiate, it evolves. It doesn't care about your comfort zone, it cares about your capacity. So it pushes, nudges, sometimes even breaks you until you expand. It's not cruelty, it's curriculum. The moment you think life is dismantling you, it's actually sculpting you. Maybe the mess isn't a mistake. Maybe it's the mold. And perhaps the greatest irony of all is that once you stop trying to force destiny, you begin to live it effortlessly. You realize it was never about control, but about connection, with yourself, with others, with the flow of everything. The moment you stop demanding that life makes sense is the moment it starts to. Destiny doesn't need you to be perfect or prepared. It just needs you to be present. Because maybe the whole point of this strange, beautiful experiment called life isn't to figure it out. It's to experience it, to laugh in the confusion, to dance in the waiting, and to realize that every twist and turn, every coincidence and delay, every heartbreak and surprise was never random at all. It was destiny, always speaking the same language, love disguised as chaos, purpose disguised as detour, and meaning hiding in plain sight, right where you are. Maybe destiny is not a path, but a pulse, something that moves through us, rather than something we move toward. It's not a finish line or a grand revelation waiting at the end of the road. It's the rhythm behind every decision, every coincidence, every emotion we pretend not to feel. Sometimes it hums quietly in the background, guiding us without words, and other times it's a thunderclap that shakes the walls of your certainty. Either way, it never leaves. It waits, patient as time itself, for you to notice that it's been whispering all along, hidden in the ordinary moments you dismissed as meaningless. The more you live, the more you realize destiny doesn't speak in clarity, but in patterns. You meet the same kind of people until you finally learn to respond differently. You face the same disappointments until you stop taking them personally. You hear the same advice from strangers until you stop pretending you don't already know it's true. It's like the universe is stuck on repeat, not because it's lazy, but because you're still on the same lesson. You can almost imagine destiny sighing, rolling its eyes, muttering, "We've been over this." And when you finally get it, when you finally shift even slightly, the whole script changes. Life rewards awareness the way nature rewards sunlight. It's both humbling and hilarious how we keep trying to plan what was never meant to be planned. We draw timelines, set 5-year goals, create vision boards, and destiny looks at them the way a cat looks at a laser pointer, amused, slightly insulted, and ready to knock everything off the table just to remind us who's really in charge. The irony is that the moment we stop obsessing over control, life actually starts cooperating. When we loosen our grip, opportunities appear that were invisible before. It's almost as if certainty blocks the view. You can't see the horizon while staring at your feet. Sometimes destiny reveals itself in the form of resistance. The doors that refuse to open, the relationships that refuse to work, the jobs that refuse to fulfill you, they're not random failures, they're redirections. Life doesn't use no as rejection, but as protection. It's not closing the door to punish you. It's keeping you from stepping into a room where you no longer belong. The trick is trusting that even disappointment has precision. You think something was taken from you, but often it was just returned to where it truly belonged. Destiny doesn't lose things, it rearranges them. Of course, we don't see it that way while it's happening. In the moment, it feels like chaos, the missed call, the lost opportunity, the breakup that cracks you open. But years later, you look back and realize that chaos was choreography. Every wrong turn led to the right place by a route you never would have chosen. It's like a movie where the plot twists only make sense after the credits roll. And maybe that's why patience is such an underrated form of intelligence. Not the passive kind, but the kind that says, "I don't understand it yet, but I will." The ability to wait without resentment is the quiet superpower of those who trust life's timing. Humor, too, is destiny's secret language. You can tell when someone has grown spiritually by how easily they laugh at things that once made them spiral. You lose your job, and instead of despair, you mutter, so this is the plot twist, huh? You watch your plans fall apart and find yourself laughing, not because it's funny, but because it's too ironic not to be. The universe seems to love dramatic irony. It lets you believe you're in control just long enough to make the punchline land harder. Maybe laughter is the soul's way of bowing to the absurdity of how little we actually understand. There's a strange freedom in realizing that destiny doesn't require your approval. It doesn't need you to be confident, fearless, or even ready. It just needs you to keep showing up. Every time you wake up and try again, even half-heartedly, destiny adjusts the script. It's not waiting for you to become perfect. It's building something through your imperfections. Every wrong word, every misstep, every awkward silence contributes to the unfolding of something that wouldn't exist without you being exactly who you are, flaws and all. Maybe destiny doesn't demand brilliance, it just demands authenticity. It's fascinating how destiny seems to use contrast as its favorite teaching tool, the way love feels richer after loneliness, the way success tastes better after failure, the way peace feels sacred after years of chaos. We're addicted to the illusion that we could have one without the other, that joy can exist without pain, or that understanding can exist without confusion. But destiny's not interested in making you comfortable. It's interested in making you complete. And completeness, by its nature, requires contrast. You can't become whole by only living the pleasant chapters. Every now and then, destiny gets generous. It gives you one of those crystalline moments where everything makes sense. You meet the right person at the right time. You receive the exact words you needed to hear. You feel seen by life itself. Those moments don't last long, but maybe they're not meant to. They're reminders, not destinations. The universe doesn't hand you clarity to keep. It lends it to you so you'll remember it's possible. The rest of the time, it expects you to walk by faith, half blind, half laughing, but always moving forward. And in the end, maybe destiny isn't this grand design laid out by the heavens, but a collaboration, a dance between your choices and life's timing. You lead sometimes, you stumble sometimes, and the universe adjusts. It's messy, improvised, unpredictable, but that's what makes it alive. The magic isn't in knowing the steps, but in trusting the rhythm. Maybe the point was never to figure out what destiny wants from you, but to realize it's been wanting what you already are. Someone willing to experience, to feel, to learn, to laugh, and to keep dancing, even when you can't hear the music. Maybe destiny isn't this invisible hand pushing you toward a single outcome. Maybe it's more like a mirror that shows you who you are becoming with every choice you make. It doesn't care about perfection, about getting everything right, or about following a sacred plan written in the stars. It cares about participation, about whether you're awake enough to notice how every small action reshapes the world around you. The funny part is, we keep looking for destiny in the big, cinematic moments, the job offer, the wedding, the move to a new city, while it's quietly unfolding in the everyday decisions. How you speak to a stranger, how you react when things don't go your way, how you love when no one's watching. Maybe the grand design was never about grandness at all. It's strange how humans crave control when destiny seems to prefer improvisation. We build plans, schedules, 5-year goals, and the universe laughs like a friend who knows a spoiler. It's not mocking us, it's just amused by how seriously we take our own blueprints. You think you finally got life figured out, and suddenly the floor drops beneath you. A door you thought was guaranteed slams shut, and another you never noticed creaks open. That's destiny's way of keeping things interesting. It knows comfort breeds stagnation. So it tosses in a bit of chaos now and then, just enough to remind you that growth and predictability rarely share the same room. You start to realize that destiny has a language, but it's not made of words. It speaks through timing, through repetition, through that persistent gut feeling that won't leave you alone. You might call it intuition, coincidence, alignment. But whatever name you give it, it always nudges you toward truth. The problem is, we don't always listen until it starts shouting. How many times have you said, "I knew I shouldn't have done that," only after doing it anyway? It's almost comedic how destiny starts gentle. A whisper, a sign, a little discomfort. And when we ignore it, it upgrades to full-blown chaos. It's like getting an email from the universe that says urgent in the subject line, and still thinking, I'll deal with it later. Oh, sometimes the lessons are subtle and sometimes they crash into you like a plot twist. You lose what you thought you couldn't live without and somehow end up freer than you've ever been. You meet someone who feels like a blessing, only to discover they were a mirror reflecting your own wounds. Destiny loves irony. It gives you what you think you want to show you what you actually need. And it always delivers the lesson with exquisite timing, right when you're least equipped to handle it, but most capable of learning from it. That's its secret genius. It builds your strength through surprise. There's something almost scientific about how destiny recalibrates us. Every decision creates a ripple, and every ripple eventually returns. What you put into the world, kindness, bitterness, generosity, resentment, it all circles back, reshaped but recognizable. You can call it karma, energy, vibration, or just plain human consequence, but the math remains the same. The universe is an expert recycler. Nothing you give is wasted, it just changes form. Even pain transforms. What hurts now might become the very empathy that heals someone else later. Destiny isn't interested in punishing, it's interested in refining. It's impossible not to laugh when you finally notice how perfectly orchestrated the chaos has been all along. The heartbreak that made you question everything ends up teaching you how to love more deeply. The rejection that bruised your ego pushes you towards something more authentic. The wrong time turns out to be the only time that could have worked. Life seems almost theatrical in how it arranges its plot twists, as if the universe hired a playwright with a flair for drama and impeccable comedic timing. You're the protagonist, of course, but half the time, you're also the punchline. And yet, destiny isn't always dramatic. Some of its most profound moments arrive quietly. No thunder, no epiphany, no spotlight, just a feeling that something inside you has shifted. You stop chasing, you stop explaining, you stop apologizing for evolving. You realize you've outgrown the version of yourself who needed everything to make sense. That's growth disguised as stillness. We tend to mistake peace for boredom, but maybe peace is just the absence of resistance. The point where you stop fighting what was never yours to control. It's not that destiny suddenly got easier, it's that you stopped making it harder. It's funny how life keeps giving us opportunities to practice letting go. We resist, of course. We cling to plans, people, and identities as if they define us. But destiny has a gentle way of reminding us that nothing permanent can be taken away, and nothing temporary can be held forever. You can cling to the shore all you want, but eventually the tide will pull you toward the current. Maybe that's what trust really means. Not believing everything will work out perfectly, but knowing you'll still be okay when it doesn't. Sometimes, the most unexpected part of destiny is how much humor hides in hindsight. You look back at the moments you thought were unbearable and realize they were oddly well-timed. The job you didn't get made space for the one that finally fit. The relationship that ended made room for the love that didn't need fixing. You see the pattern only after you stop trying to control it. And you laugh, not just because it's ironic, but because it's brilliant. Destiny's writing style is part comedy, part tragedy, part miracle, and somehow it all works. And maybe the greatest lesson of all is that destiny was never a script written for you, but one written with you. You're not an actor following cues. You're a co-author, improvising in real time. Every mistake adds texture, every loss adds depth, every laugh adds light. It's a living story that keeps rewriting itself as you grow. You don't need to know the ending. That's the point. The magic is in not knowing, in showing up anyway, in daring to keep believing that maybe, just maybe, the universe isn't trying to confuse you at all. It's trying to surprise you with a story you didn't expect but somehow always needed. Maybe destiny doesn't reveal itself through lightning bolts and burning bushes. Maybe it hides in the spaces between what we think we want and what we actually need. It's subtle like that. You spend years praying for one thing, and when life gives you something completely different, you're furious. Only later, when the dust settles, do you realize the thing you got was the one you were ready for all along? It's almost comical how destiny keeps saving us from our own wish lists. We beg for shortcuts, and the universe hands us endurance instead. We ask for clarity, and it gives us confusion, not to mock us, but to make sure we earn our understanding instead of borrowing it. It's funny how people say everything happens for a reason, as if destiny were a polite secretary keeping neat records of our tragedies. Maybe things don't happen for a reason, but they become reason. Meaning grows in retrospect. When you're inside the storm, everything feels random, unfair, unbearable. But time, that sly translator, turns chaos into coherence. One day you look back and see how the heartbreak that wrecked you was the doorway to compassion, or how losing something forced you to meet yourself for the first time. Destiny is less a plan and more a pattern, one you can only see when you stop squinting. Sometimes destiny uses exhaustion as its loudest signal. You try to force what's not meant for you, and everything starts feeling heavier. You chase, negotiate, over-explain, but the harder you push, the more resistance you meet. That's not punishment. That's protection disguised as frustration. Life's way of saying, you're barking up the wrong timeline. And yet, we persist. We cling to things falling apart because we'd rather have a broken version of what we want than face the terror of not knowing what comes next. It's almost poetic. Humans will suffer familiar pain before risking uncertain peace. There's something humbling about realizing destiny doesn't reward effort alone. It rewards alignment. You can work 20 hours a day on something that isn't meant for you and still get nowhere, while someone else stumbles into their purpose half by accident. It's not about luck, it's resonance. The universe recognizes authenticity the way a lock recognizes the right key. That's why things start flowing when you finally stop pretending. Destiny seems allergic to pretense. It waits patiently for you to drop the act. Then it opens every door you thought was locked. And the irony of it all is that we treat destiny like a distant goal when it's actually a daily practice. It's in how you speak to the cashier, how you treat yourself when no one's watching, how you respond to small inconveniences. Every reaction rewires the story. The grand purpose you're waiting for might be hidden in the way you tie your shoes every morning, the rhythm, the care, the quiet commitment to showing up. Maybe purpose isn't found. Maybe it's lived into existence by how present you are with what's right in front of you. Sometimes, though, destiny tests you with silence. Nothing moves. You pray, plan, push, and the universe just stares back, offering no hint, no direction. That silence feels cruel until you realize it's incubation, like the pause between inhale and exhale. Necessary, sacred. Life is often rearranging behind the curtain, and you're the only one who doesn't have backstage access. You're screaming, "Why isn't anything happening?" While the universe is whispering, "Because everything is." The stillness isn't punishment, it's synchronization. There's a kind of cosmic humor in how destiny always finds a way to make you laugh at yourself eventually. The very thing you swore you'd never do becomes your passion. The city you promised you'd never live in becomes your home. The person you thought you couldn't live without turns into a blurry footnote in your story. It's as if destiny enjoys proving you wrong just to show how little you knew about who you could become. And maybe that's the point. Not to humiliate you, but to remind you that growth always starts with contradiction. Even science can't fully explain how tiny decisions cascade into enormous consequences. You turn left instead of right. You send one message, you take one train, and suddenly your life splits into a completely different version of itself. Butterfly effects aren't just poetic. They're mathematical. Every choice folds time differently. The thought that one missed coffee could alter the entire map of your future should terrify you, but instead, it's freeing. Because if one small choice can change everything, then so can one small act of courage. Destiny doesn't demand grandeur, just participation. The more you trust that unseen rhythm, the more you start seeing it everywhere. In the way leaves fall exactly where they're needed. In the way chance meetings feel rehearsed, in the way pain always arrives carrying a lesson, it refuses to hand over until you've stopped resisting. Destiny doesn't rush because it doesn't doubt. It knows everything arrives precisely on time. Not your time, but time's time. That's the part that drives humans crazy. We think waiting means nothing's happening, but waiting is when roots grow. The fruit only shows later. And maybe that's destiny's final trick, teaching us to stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Because purpose isn't revealed in explanations, it's revealed in action. You live your way into understanding, one imperfect step at a time. The beauty of destiny is that it never gives up on you, even when you give up on it. It will loop, detour, redirect, and recycle your lessons until you finally remember what you came here to become. And when that moment comes, when you catch the rhythm and dance without fear of missing a step, you'll realize destiny wasn't chasing you. It was walking beside you all along, waiting for you to finally turn and say, I see it now. And in that recognition, that blend of laughter, awe, and quiet surrender, the whole universe exhales, satisfied that you finally got the joke. Maybe destiny isn't some cosmic prophecy carved in stone. Maybe it's more like wet clay, constantly shaped by the hands of every decision you make and every accident you survive. The irony is that we keep trying to find the sculptor, when all along it's been us, shaping and reshaping the form through every choice, fear, and moment of courage. But we forget that clay doesn't harden overnight. It takes time, pressure, and occasionally a good fall from the table to crack open and be rebuilt stronger. Perhaps destiny is less about where you're heading and more about what you become in the process of being molded by it. Think about how often we talk about signs from the universe, as if the cosmos were some giant customer service department sending us personalized updates. A feather on the sidewalk, a song on the radio, a power outage during an argument. We call them omens, but maybe they're just the way randomness speaks to meaning-hungry creatures. Still, there's something oddly comforting about pretending the universe is flirting with us, like we're in on a private joke with existence itself. Maybe we keep searching for signs because silence terrifies us. It's easier to believe the universe is sending coded messages than to accept that life is sometimes just winging it, same as we are. But destiny loves a bit of theater, doesn't it? It lets coincidences collide so perfectly that you can't help but believe there's a hidden script. You bump into a stranger in another country who happens to know your childhood friend. You miss a flight and end up sitting next to someone who changes the entire course of your life. We call it fate, but maybe it's just the world folding in on itself for a moment, letting you glimpse its pattern before it hides again. The truth is, these moments only look magical in hindsight. When they're happening, they usually feel like inconvenience, bad timing, or just plain luck. Life hides miracles in camouflage because it knows we'd ruin them if we saw them coming. Destiny's favorite trick is repetition. It keeps sending you the same kind of person, the same kind of problem, the same kind of heartbreak, until you finally respond differently. It's not cruel, just committed to your evolution. It'll keep recycling the same lesson until it stops hurting. The day you react with calm instead of chaos, with understanding instead of blame, destiny sighs with relief and says, finally, we can move on. And yet, humans being humans, we often mistake growth for boredom. We crave drama, forgetting that peace feels foreign only because it's new. Maybe the absence of chaos isn't emptiness, maybe it's graduation. It's almost funny how destiny uses timing as its main form of irony. The day you stop obsessing over something is usually the day it shows up. The person who broke your heart finds peace right after you've stopped caring. The opportunity you begged for finally arrives the week you decide you no longer need it. Life seems to have a twisted sense of humor, but maybe it's not mockery, and maybe it's mercy. The universe waits until you're detached enough to handle the very thing you wanted, so you don't ruin it with desperation. Destiny never denies you, it just delays you until you're no longer a threat to your own happiness. There's something humbling about realizing how much of destiny depends on perspective. We spend so much time labeling moments as good or bad, when half of them haven't even finished unfolding. What feels like a curse today might be the seed of something sacred growing underground. It's hard to trust that while you're knee-deep in confusion, but that's the trick of faith. Not in gods or horoscopes, but in the idea that life might actually know what it's doing. And when you think about it, most of the things that broke you didn't destroy you. They redesigned you. Pain is just evolution wearing uncomfortable shoes. If destiny has an art form, it's symmetry. The same lessons keep returning in different costumes, like reruns with new actors. When you find yourself saying, why does this keep happening to me? And the universe answers, because you keep auditioning for the same role. Until you change the script, the story won't end. It's not punishment, it's participation. You can't escape the lesson by running. You only graduate by understanding. And when you finally see the pattern clearly enough to laugh at it, that's when you realize you're no longer trapped inside it. Laughter might be the soul's diploma, but destiny isn't all poetry and philosophy. Sometimes it's absurdly practical. It hides wisdom in traffic jams, awkward silences, and burnt toast. It reminds you that life isn't supposed to be flawless. It's supposed to be lived. You might think the universe has better things to do than teach you patience at the DMV, but maybe that's exactly the point. Destiny doesn't care about glamour, it cares about growth. And growth, unfortunately, prefers discomfort over convenience. It shows up dressed as small annoyances until you learn to stop reacting to every single one like it's the apocalypse. There's an almost mischievous comfort in realizing destiny doesn't care about your image. It doesn't wait for you to get your act together before delivering miracles. It meets you mid-mess. When your hair is unwashed, your bank account's empty, and your confidence is on lunch break. That's when it whispers, now. Because it knows that perfection is sterile, and real transformation happens in the middle of the chaos, not after it's been cleaned up. If you wait until you're ready, you'll die waiting. Destiny rewards the ones who show up anyway, trembling, confused, half prepared, but willing. And maybe that's the secret it's been trying to tell us all along. That destiny isn't a promise, it's a partnership. It's not something that happens to you, it's something that happens with you. Every decision you make, every chance you take, every time you choose compassion over pride, you're co-writing your fate with something far larger than yourself. It's not about predicting the future, it's about participating in it. Because maybe destiny isn't written in the stars at all, maybe it's written in the small, brave acts of today, the moments when you choose to believe, to try, to laugh, to love, even when you have no idea where any of it will lead. Maybe destiny has a mischievous habit of disguising itself as disaster. You think everything's falling apart, but in reality, something deeper is quietly falling into place. We only call it chaos because we're standing too close to see the pattern. Step back far enough, and what looked like betrayal becomes redirection. What felt like loss turns into liberation. But destiny knows we wouldn't evolve if it told us the ending in advance. So it lets us stumble, curse, cry, and then laugh later when we realize how perfect the timing actually was. It's like the universe is writing a comedy, but we keep treating it like a tragedy halfway through the plot. Life has a strange sense of irony. The job you didn't get leads you to the city where you meet your soulmate. The heartbreak that left you hollow pushes you toward the passion that finally fills you. The flight you missed keeps you from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Every wrong thing has a secret rightness woven inside it. Maybe destiny is a bit like jazz. It sounds chaotic until you learn to hear the rhythm. The pauses, the dissonance, even the missed notes all serve the music. We just forget that sometimes silence is part of the song. It's amusing how humans demand logic from a universe that clearly enjoys absurdity. We want step-by-step instructions while living inside a cosmic improv show. We treat uncertainty like failure, but uncertainty is where magic hides. Think about it. Nothing truly extraordinary ever happens in a moment of total control. Falling in love, discovering a new passion, finding your purpose, all of it happens when you're unguarded, unprepared, maybe even slightly ridiculous. The universe doesn't reward your best performance. It rewards your willingness to be unscripted. Destiny loves to use humor as camouflage. It'll send you lessons wearing the mask of inconvenience. Your car won't start, your meeting gets canceled, your plans derail, and while you're raging, life quietly rearranges things behind the scenes. It's almost theatrical, the way it distracts you with chaos, just long enough to deliver you to the exact place you needed to be. Later, when you look back, you can't help but laugh, because deep down you realize that if things had gone your way, you would have missed the miracle entirely. Destiny knows you take life too seriously, so it plays little pranks to keep you humble. It's strange how often we mistake endings for punishment when they're actually release. We beg to hold on to things that have already served their purpose. The friendship that fades, the job that no longer fits, the dream that quietly dissolves. All of them are exits, not exiles. But humans, being sentimental creatures, mourn every departure as if the story's over. We forget that some chapters have to close so the plot can advance. Imagine if your favorite movie never changed scenes. It would stop being a story and start being a loop. And Destiny doesn't do loops, it does spirals. You revisit lessons, yes, but always from a higher perspective. It's fascinating how pain, the thing we resist most, often ends up being Destiny's favorite teaching tool. Joy might make us comfortable, but pain makes us conscious. You don't grow when everything's easy. You grow when you have to decide whether to stay broken or to rebuild differently. Pain strips away illusion. It leaves you with only what's real, and that's where transformation begins. The funny thing is, you'll look back on your worst days and realize they were your training ground. The messy, unglamorous classrooms where you learned the language of resilience. It's Destiny's way of saying, I trust you with more now. There's a quiet beauty in realizing Destiny doesn't rush you. It doesn't punish you for taking detours. It uses them. You can't miss what's truly meant for you because what's meant for you adapts. It finds new routes, new timing, new disguises. You might delay it, sure, but you can't derail it. That's the part people forget. Destiny isn't fragile, it's patient. It waits for you to catch up, to mature enough to recognize it when it knocks again. And it always knocks again, though sometimes it uses the voice of a stranger, a line in a song, or an unexpected quiet moment that feels oddly familiar. If you pay attention, you'll notice how Destiny has a signature, synchronicity, those eerie coincidences that feel too deliberate to be random. The right book falling into your hands, the name that keeps reappearing, the feeling that something is gently nudging you in a specific direction. Skeptics call it coincidence, but maybe coincidence is just destiny in casual clothes. It doesn't need to prove itself with grandeur. It prefers subtlety, like a secret between old friends. The challenge isn't whether destiny is real, it's whether you're still enough to notice when it's whispering. And then there's free will, that eternal debate partner of destiny. We like to think we're in charge, steering our lives with precision, but maybe we're more like dancers than drivers. We lead sometimes, we follow sometimes, and the rhythm keeps us honest. Free will decides the steps, but destiny provides the music. You can resist it, stumble through it, or move with it, but the song keeps playing, and the more you align your movements with its rhythm, the less it feels like struggle and the more it feels like flow. That's when life stops being a fight and starts being an art form. Maybe the secret isn't to figure out destiny at all, but to let it unfold like a story you trust, even when you don't understand the plot. You don't need spoilers to believe the ending will make sense. You just need to keep turning the pages, because in the end, destiny isn't a force outside of you. It's the dialogue between your choices and the universe's timing. It's the laughter hidden inside your heartbreaks, the peace waiting behind your impatience, the order disguised as chaos. And when you finally stop trying to control it, when you laugh instead of panic, when you trust instead of demand, destiny reveals its real secret. It was never testing you. It was teaching you how to dance in the dark until the light felt familiar again. Maybe destiny isn't a map with a single path, but a maze that keeps shifting depending on how you move through it. Every turn you take rearranges the walls a little, and sometimes it builds a new door you couldn't have seen before. That's what makes it infuriating and miraculous all at once. You can't predict it, but you also can't ruin it. Every mistake you think you made is already accounted for, folded neatly into the geometry of what's still unfolding. It's almost like the universe is saying, "Relax, I budgeted for your chaos." And somehow, it always does. It's funny how destiny and freedom look like opposites, but behave like twins. We spend our lives arguing over whether things are meant to be, forgetting that meaning doesn't exist until we decide to give it one. A random coincidence feels divine only because we choose to see it that way. You trip, spill your coffee, meet someone new, and suddenly you're convinced it was written in the stars. Maybe the truth isn't that everything is predestined, but that everything is recyclable. Life keeps handing you material. What you make of it is up to you. That's not fate. That's co-creation. And honestly, it's a lot more fun that way. There's a strange comedy in how humans try to control what's uncontrollable. We plan our lives as if destiny were a customer service agent who will read the complaint and fix everything by Monday. But destiny doesn't take requests. It takes signals. It listens to your energy, not your emails. You can scream about what you want all day, but what you believe you deserve, that's what gets delivered. It's not personal, it's physics. The universe isn't punishing you, it's just matching frequencies. And sometimes the reason you don't get what you're chasing is because deep down you still think it's too good for you. Destiny won't argue. It'll wait until you agree to receive more. There's something hilarious about how destiny tends to test your sense of timing. You want things now, and it says, "That's adorable." You think you're ready, but the universe sees the fine print, the fears you haven't faced, the lessons you haven't finished. So it delays, detours, denies, and you call it misfortune. But if it gave you what you wanted before you were strong enough to handle it, you'd drop it. Sometimes delay is destiny's most protective form of love. It doesn't say no, it says not yet, because it knows you're still trying to carry tomorrow's blessings with yesterday's muscles. It's humbling to realize that destiny doesn't speak English, or any human language for that matter. It speaks through synchronicity, discomfort, intuition, déjà vu, and those weird little coincidences that feel too specific to ignore. But we're so distracted by noise, deadlines, screens, opinions, that we rarely hear it. Think about how often your gut told you something, and you ignored it because it didn't make logical sense. Then, weeks later, you find yourself saying, "I knew it. That wasn't hindsight. That was translation." Destiny sent you a memo, but your brain filed it under nonsense. It's almost poetic how our intuition works like Wi-Fi. Invisible, essential, and conveniently unstable when we need it most. Sometimes destiny teaches through repetition. You meet the same personality in different bodies. You face the same kind of challenge in different forms. You think you're cursed, but really, you're enrolled. The universe is your teacher, and every stubborn pattern is a class you keep retaking until you finally pass. You graduate the day you stop reacting the same way. That's when life changes the curriculum. The people who once triggered you start teaching you instead. And one day, you realize the problem wasn't the lesson. It was your refusal to stop arguing with it. You can tell destiny's at work when something feels both terrifying and inevitable. It's that mix of panic and peace, the, "oh no, this is happening," that lives right next to, but somehow it feels right. The big moves, quitting the job, ending the relationship, starting the dream, always come with that electric contradiction. Fear doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're alive at the edge of transformation. Destiny rarely feels comfortable because it's too busy rearranging who you thought you were. If it were easy, it wouldn't be sacred. Growth, after all, is just discomfort with better lighting. There's a peculiar tenderness in how destiny breaks us just enough to rebuild us softer. Every heartbreak, every failure, every season of doubt leaves behind a kind of humility, not the defeated kind, but the wise kind. You stop needing to know everything. You stop forcing answers. You start trusting that even the unanswered questions are doing their work in silence. That's when life starts to feel different. Lighter, but deeper. It's not that problems disappear, it's that you stop expecting them to mean you're doing something wrong. You realize that chaos isn't proof of failure, it's proof that you're alive in motion. And isn't it strange how the worst moments often carry the best jokes? You lose everything, and the universe somehow sneaks in a bit of comedy to keep you from combusting. You cry until you laugh, laugh until you cry, and suddenly the tragedy doesn't own you anymore. That's destiny's secret medicine. Humor. It's what turns pain into perspective. It's what makes survival feel sacred instead of serious. Maybe the universe doesn't take itself as seriously as we do. Maybe it keeps throwing banana peels at our egos just to make sure we remember none of this is permanent, but all of it matters. And perhaps the most extraordinary part of destiny is how ordinary it looks most of the time. It's not thunderbolts or revelations. It's the small, unremarkable moments that change everything. A conversation at the right time, a quiet decision you almost didn't make, a simple act of kindness that ripples further than you'll ever know. The divine hides in the mundane because that's where we're least likely to look. It's almost funny. We search for meaning in the stars while it's been sitting across from us at breakfast, waiting for us to notice. Maybe that's what destiny has been trying to teach us all along, that the magic we're looking for isn't in the future. It's right here, disguised as an ordinary life that's been extraordinary the whole time. Maybe destiny isn't the story of what happens to us, but what happens through us, that quiet thread weaving moments we don't yet understand into something coherent, even beautiful. It doesn't rush, doesn't shout, doesn't negotiate. It just moves, softly, patiently, like the tide reshaping the shore while pretending it's only passing by. The problem is, we humans love to interrupt it. We grab the pen mid-sentence and demand to know how the story ends. Destiny smiles, sets down its coffee, and says, "You'll ruin the twist if I tell you now." Because really, what's the point of a plot if you already know the ending? It's strange how much of destiny depends on timing, not the ticking clock kind, but the mysterious rhythm of readiness. You think you're waiting for the right opportunity, but often the opportunity is waiting for the right version of you. Life holds things back until you've outgrown your old reactions, until the lessons you used to resist become second nature. The universe doesn't work on deadlines, it works on maturity, and just when you think nothing's moving, it delivers a moment so precise it's almost rude. The phone call that comes seconds after you've given up. The person who appears the moment you stop chasing. The dream that revives itself after you buried it. You'd think the universe was stalking you. And maybe it is, lovingly. Destiny has a way of speaking through repetition. You keep encountering the same theme in different packaging. A pattern in relationships, a feeling in new circumstances, a phrase that won't stop following you. It's like a cosmic echo saying, you still don't get it. And when you finally do, when the lesson lands so clearly you can't unsee it, everything shifts at once. The same situation that once felt like a trap now looks like a test you passed without realizing. It's wild how quickly perception rewrites reality. The facts don't change, but your understanding does, and that's enough to transform the whole experience. It's almost comedic how simple it is, like searching for your glasses while they're sitting on your face. Sometimes, destiny's lessons hide inside the people who frustrate you most. The coworker who triggers your patience, the family member who mirrors your fears, the friend who disappears right when you need them. Each one is a little curriculum sent to expose your blind spots. We like to call them villains, but they're really unpaid teachers. Life doesn't always hand us lessons wrapped in kindness. Sometimes it prefers sarcasm. And maybe that's the universe's sense of humor. It knows we wouldn't pay attention to subtlety, so it gives us loud, inconvenient reminders until we finally laugh at ourselves. Growth, apparently, loves irony. It's interesting how destiny sneaks into everyday life through choices so small we don't even notice them. The day you decide to walk instead of drive. The book you pick up because the cover felt right. The text you almost didn't send. These are the invisible hinges of your story. Ordinary moments that end up swinging open extraordinary doors. We call it coincidence, but maybe coincidence is just destiny's camouflage. If everything looked divine, we'd never appreciate the miracle of the mundane. The cosmic joke is that meaning hides best in plain sight, right beside your coffee cup. You start realizing that destiny is less about control and more about collaboration. It doesn't demand obedience, it invites participation. You don't have to chase it, you have to converse with it. Every time you trust your gut instead of your fear, every time you choose kindness instead of ego, you align just a little closer to its rhythm. And the wild part is that the more you trust, the clearer it gets. It's like learning to dance in the dark. Awkward at first, but then you feel the music under your skin and realize it was guiding you the whole time. The universe doesn't need you to see. It needs you to feel. There's something deeply human about how we mistake comfort for destiny's approval. We assume the easy path means we're on the right track, but destiny often hides in friction. The detour, the disagreement, the difficulty, that's where your soul gets sculpted. You don't build strength in the moments that go smoothly. You build it in the ones that make you question everything. Pain, in a twisted way, is the universe's form of personal training. It doesn't send it to break you, but to tone the parts of you that softness alone can't reach. One day, when you find yourself calm in a situation that once terrified you, you'll realize that was destiny working out through repetition. It's oddly comforting how destiny keeps using humor to balance the weight of it all. The timing, the coincidences, the poetic reversals. It's too precise to be random and too funny to be serious. The universe doesn't waste irony. You spend years chasing validation, only to realize the people whose approval you sought were never paying attention. You beg for a sign to leave, and the next day, your job accidentally fires you. It's like life saying, you clearly needed a little help making that decision. If you don't learn to laugh at this stuff, it'll drive you mad. And maybe that's the ultimate lesson. Laughter is proof that you finally stopped fighting the plot. As time goes on, destiny starts feeling less like a force and more like a mirror. It doesn't show you what's coming. It shows you who you are in real time. Every choice becomes a reflection. The opportunities you attract, the people you tolerate, the energy you project, they're all pieces of the same conversation between who you are and who you're becoming. You don't find your path, you become it. And once you realize that, even your mistakes start to look sacred. Because destiny isn't grading your performance, it's watching your evolution. And maybe that's the quiet truth behind it all. Destiny doesn't need to be chased, predicted, or decoded. It just needs to be lived. You're already in it. The messy middle, the uncertain stretch, the part where nothing makes sense yet. That is the sacred space where destiny works its craft. The chaos isn't a detour, it's the choreography. The delays aren't punishment, they're punctuation. And one day, when you least expect it, all the scattered moments, the laughter, the heartbreak, the small acts of courage, will fit together so perfectly you'll wonder how you ever doubted the design. You'll smile, shake your head, and say what everyone says when they finally understand their path. Of course, it had to happen exactly like that. Maybe destiny isn't a finish line at all. Maybe it's a conversation that never ends. It's not about arriving somewhere divine, but about learning to listen to what life has been whispering since the beginning. Every breath, every detour, every heartbreak is a sentence in a dialogue between you and the universe, but we're impatient listeners. We interrupt, we translate too literally, we demand clear instructions like it's some kind of celestial GPS. And destiny, being the trickster that it is, just smiles and says, recalculating. Because what's the fun in a story that doesn't twist a little? It's amusing how we keep looking for meaning in grand gestures when it's usually hiding in small absurdities. We want a burning bush, a neon sign, a divine text message saying, here's your purpose. But destiny prefers subtler mediums, a stranger's kindness, a sudden silence, a gut feeling you can't explain. The clues are always there, camouflaged in daily life. It's like the universe left sticky notes everywhere, but you're too busy doom scrolling to notice. If destiny were louder, maybe we'd pay attention, but maybe the quiet is part of the test. If you can hear life's whisper over the noise of your own mind, you're probably already aligned. There's something hilarious about how destiny uses irony as its love language. You spend your youth rushing to grow up, then spend adulthood wishing you could slow down. You fight to be understood, and then realize half the people who misunderstood you were never meant to get the full script. You chase stability and discover that peace has nothing to do with circumstances. It's an internal Wi-Fi signal that only works when you stop moving furniture around your soul. Destiny loves that kind of irony. It's how it keeps us humble, reminding us that enlightenment doesn't come from knowing more, but from laughing sooner. And yet, for all its mystery, destiny is oddly practical. It doesn't require you to have faith in angels or quantum physics. It only asks you to pay attention. Notice how life reacts when you make a decision, how the energy shifts, how certain paths seem to unfold while others close like automatic doors. The feedback is constant, but subtle. Maybe that's why we miss it. We expect fireworks, and destiny sends breadcrumbs. It's like the universe saying, I'd give you more signs, but you just overthink those too. Sometimes destiny hides behind what looks like failure. You apply for a dream job and get rejected, only to stumble into a completely different opportunity that fits you better. You lose touch with someone you thought you'd never live without, and suddenly you have space for something real. Failure might be destiny's most misunderstood miracle. It's how life edits your story when you're too attached to the rough draft. We love to cling to what was supposed to happen, forgetting that destiny has far better taste than we do. It's strange how often the things we call coincidences seem too personal to be random. You think of someone you haven't seen in years, and they message you an hour later. You take a wrong turn and end up in the exact place you needed to be. Statistically, we could explain it as probability, but emotionally it feels like poetry. Maybe that's because the universe has always been more of a poet than a scientist. Its timing is rarely precise in a logical sense, but always perfect in an emotional one. Destiny doesn't calculate, it composes. What's funny is that when you finally stop chasing it, destiny tends to speed up. You loosen your grip, and suddenly the right people, opportunities, and moments just show up. effortlessly, as if they were waiting for you to stop micromanaging the universe. It's almost insulting how easy things get once you stop trying so hard. You spend years sweating over control, and life was just standing there, tapping its foot, saying, "Are you done yet?" Surrender isn't giving up. It's finally admitting that the script reads better when you don't rewrite every scene. And then there's love, Destiny's favorite punchline. The person you thought was the one turns out to be the lesson. The one you ignored because they didn't fit your type becomes the quiet constant you never knew you needed. Love doesn't follow logic, it follows alignment. Two people can meet at the wrong time and still plant something that blooms years later. It's not always about romance either. Sometimes it's the friend who appears right when you're about to give up, or the stranger who says something that heals a wound you didn't know was still bleeding. Destiny's matchmaking skills go far beyond dating apps. There's a humility that comes with realizing you'll never fully understand how it all works. The patterns, the synchronicities, the divine timing, they're too intricate to decode. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the real purpose of destiny isn't to be understood, but to be experienced. You can't outsmart the mystery without killing it. The beauty of life lies in the not knowing, in showing up anyway, laughing at the chaos, and trusting that even the weirdest moments are part of something coherent. Curiosity keeps you alive. Certainty just makes you bored. And perhaps that's how destiny finally wins. Not by proving its existence, but by making you fall in love with uncertainty itself. You stop needing every moment to have meaning and start trusting that meaning reveals itself in time. You stop trying to predict the plot and start appreciating the prose. You realize that the journey was never about decoding some secret plan written in the stars. It was about learning to live with your eyes open, your heart unguarded, and your sense of humor intact. Because maybe destiny isn't waiting at the end of the road. Maybe it's the laughter you find along the way, echoing softly between the chaos and the calm, reminding you that somehow, against all odds, you've always been exactly where you needed to be.